It's time to get your fix of the teams you live for and the sports you love. This is JJ and Alex, presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Buddy, welcome to JJ and Alex. It's a football Friday, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We are here in beautiful Farmington, Utah, where we got some high school football going on tonight. Second round of the 6A high school football playoffs, where the Farmington Phoenix, the 5 seed in the 6A playoffs, will host the 12 seed, the American Fork Cavemen. I'll be on the call with Sly. That starts at 6 p.m. You can stream that game, watch that game live on the KSL Sports app, KSL Plus app, or on your laptop at KSLSports.com. Stevenson, Sylvester, Riley, Nelson in with us today, as always. Alex Curie on vacation, taking a spa day. How did that work?
Loser.
Who approved that?
His wife.
The boss, is what you're saying.
It's anniversary weekend for him, so I get it.
Yes.
I get it.
Yeah. No, in fact, today is his anniversary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got married in the fall?
Yeah.
Stupid,
Smart guy.
right?
There's so many
You know
character
what? I did it
flaws
too.
How does
with
that
this
happen?
guy.
I did it too.
So
you
many
know,
character flaws.
we're not in charge in that. You know.
Well,
During
come on
the
now.
football season?
That's
Are
a
you
deal
serious?
breaker.
If that helps you sleep at night, whatever.
Well, she knows what it is. If it's a football, we celebrate. We don't actually celebrate it on the day. We find an empty day during the week, most likely a Wednesday, and that's how we get it done.
That could be a deal breaker. So Alex is out today, family duty. We're here, though. We're ready to rock and roll. It's kind of rivalry week, guys.
Almost.
Weird. I don't remember. I've covered this game for 20 years now. I don't remember either team having a bye the week before, let alone both teams having a bye before this big game. Kind of weird. How would that be for teams preparing for this game to have to deal with it for 2 weeks? Let it simmer for 2 weeks.
It originated with the Iron Bowl, didn't it? Like back when Auburn was up, like Auburn and Alabama, they did that. They were kind of the first ones to kind of what am I trying to say? They were trying to not like be in cahoots, but like coordinate bye weeks so that Iron Bowl.
neither team got
everybody's equal.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So it's okay, but also the 2 weeks of lead up is not. It just feels out of rhythm. It feels like a false start.
Right.
Because like after the games last week closed out, you're like rivalry week, baby, and then it's like that's so unfulfilling.
But it's not.
It's like,
what am I going to do tomorrow?
People that it's not this week.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
That's crazy. So
Yeah.
I'm with you on that.
And honestly, I'm going to start him earlier, although Slides, he knows. We know. I was going to say that if I'm Coach Whittingham.
I need this.
Well, no, I was going to say the Heward news came out. When did that come out?
This morning.
I was okay. I was going to say it's bad for them because how many more players are going to drop and quit on this team this year? It's a cultural thing unlike I've ever known. I mean, I remember the MAC teams, but, I was a young kid. I was a middle schooler, high schooler. I didn't pay that close of attention. So really all I've known at Utah is a Kyle Whittingham run program, and I have never – and these are probably legitimate injuries and legitimate surgeries. And granted, Heward's never been higher than 4th on the depth chart.
Right.
So what are we talking about here?
And the word was it was always going to be a red shirt.
I know, but
anyway.
but still, like, if I'm the SID up there, like, get the media's not doing you any favors because you just feel like every other week someone's, like, chalking it up on the chalking it up for the rest of the season.
It's weird right now, isn't it? Sly, it's a weird feeling.
It's a –
Or something.
That's a loss for
or
word.
something
How about
else.
that?
Sly doesn't know what to say.
Sylvester,
I really don't, man.
Speechless.
It's plagued, man, and I can't even remember. Like just after the Baylor game, I interviewed Whit, and he's just like, "Why does this keep happening to us?" He's so bewildered at these injuries, just going crazy, and so like just the weirdest things is circling this team the last couple years, and I mean it is what it is. You got to roll with the punches, as they say. Next man up, next opportunity. Can't sweat it. The world still moves on. Blah blah blah. But I guess we now know Sam Heward is not a part of the conversation at quarterback.
He's not. So there's 2 guys left.
Luke Batari's still there.
Batari, the Ferrari. They might have to break out
Right.
the Ferrari just like
Bring
they
that
had
long
to last
hair
year.
out.
I hope we get a chance at some point in the show. I've got a game plan that I'll
Okay.
email Coach Spajakian because I want he's a local boy. Like I want to champion local boys. I want Isaac to do well, and also the rivalry's no good. Trust me, haven't been I was only on the end of one blowout, but it was the worst blowout, one of the worst blowouts ever. That 54-10. I didn't play that game, but the rivalry is better when it's
played that
competitive.
game.
So if they need some,
wouldn't have been 54-10 if you played in that game.
But if they need some game plan notes, I think I got some stuff that might help them that maybe at some point during our show today we can talk about.
I think at 3:30 is going to be a perfect time. We're going to talk about the quarterback situation at Utah. We're going to talk about the rivalry game. We'll look back a little bit to last week. I haven't had a chance to hear from you guys on what happened last week, so we'll dig into that. Sly a little bit, obviously. We got into it on Monday.
Nothing happened last
But I'd love
week.
to revisit that wound again today. The show is brought to you, as always,
Cut me
by
open again, Jer.
G2G Bars. They call me the surgeon. With all natural ingredients, no preservatives, and plenty of protein, G2G Bars are perfect for anyone who needs a tasty and nutritious boost. Utah BYU's the cut. Here we go on a Football Friday.
It's time for the biggest story of the day. This is what made the cut with JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
JJ and Alex also brought to you by Trajan Wealth. Give them a call today, your local financial fiduciary. If you have a business, you need a 401k plan or different things like that, they can help you with that. If you're getting ready to retire, they can help you with that. There's all kinds of things they can help you with. TrajanWealth.com or call them at 801-899-7600. All right, before we look ahead, before we look way back, I want to get we'll touch on the rivalry memories a little bit coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. But real quickly, I wanted to revisit last week. And let's start with BYU. Because, Riley, I really thought BYU proved something to everybody last week. Because we started to wonder a little bit after the Oklahoma State game, right? They gave us a little bit of doubt. They did not handle the run game very well. They had to have a miraculous end to keep the perfect season alive. Vegas had them as 2.5-point underdogs against a UCF team that had lost 4 straight games. What did BYU prove last Saturday in that game against UCF that maybe we didn't know yet or maybe we know now?
So in the Bronco Mendenhall era, which I played in, we virtually never lost to a team that we shouldn't lose to. But conversely, we never really beat teams that we weren't supposed to beat.
Yep.
You know, there's a couple of big wins and some banner wins in there, but like
Oklahoma.
I know,
Yeah.
but Oklahoma, like, not to discredit, because I was on that team and I fly that flag as high as anybody. But if Sam Bradford doesn't get hurt, and they bring in Landry Jones, the entire complexion of that game changed. You know, with 11 minutes left in the second quarter. So anyway, now transition over to the Kalani Sitake era. Winning games they have no business winning, like back when they beat Wisconsin.
There's a good, solid, really impressive list.
Wisconsin,
Tennessee.
Camp Randall.
I mean, there's a lot of great wins.
The Baylor on Lavelle.
Baylor when they were ranked 9th.
Yeah, there was even one. I saw someone was going over it on Twitter today. They were like 2-3 at some point, and Boise came in, was ranked 16.
Yes.
They beat Boise that week. I
beat
think
USC back in 2000.
So anyway, but then they turn around and let's count the bad losses, right? They lost to Northern Illinois. They lost to
Toledo.
I remember dragging my butt all the way across the country, losing to Liberty by 30.
Yeah.
Right, losing to Toledo. So they traded a higher ceiling for a lower floor and all this volatility. All this way to answer your question, what did we learn about BYU? Like 8 games in, they're not losing to teams, and they got maybe a couple traps left, but like that UCF traveling all the way to Orlando, they hadn't really been tested by a run-oriented team, the rush defense, all this stuff, and they handle business. So they proved that this team is different in that. I think the Kansas State game was winning a game they probably shouldn't have won, and then UCF was that game that they probably shouldn't have lost, that they lose, but they didn't lose it this year.
Another thing is, especially in independents, Octobers were an issue.
Yeah.
And was usually because of depth, right? You have those big games in September. BYU would win some of those games, but it would wear the team down. Some key guys got hurt, and then things fell apart in October. You mentioned that Boise State win. There was those Octobers where they'd lose 3-4 games in a row. I remember the Toledo game was like, how are you guys losing this game? You mentioned the Liberty game. It was just inexcusable. East Carolina on your home field. They didn't do that this year. That's huge because, A, it proves that there's a focus and a confidence in this team to not have that kind of a letdown. And B, it shows that they've got more depth than they've had previously.
Talking about depth and injury, Sly kind of alluded to this before we got into the cut, but I want to maybe bridge this over to Utah, because one of the things that I noticed in that UCF game, as soon as the game was in control, like the play calling changed and the rotations changed, meaning that, okay, maybe they've built up depth on their actual roster, but also I feel like they are architecting game plans and calling plays in a way that protects their players. I played on teams at BYU where, like, when we were out man against, like, we had to throw everything against the wall. And when you are working at the extreme of your capability, your likelihood for injury is greater. Versus now, BYU gets up, they're scoring early. They got a great track record of scoring early. They get the game in control, and they kind of throttle back. They're no longer sitting in sixth gear. Yeah. They can shift it back to fourth gear, still get the win, get everybody out of there healthy. And I feel like now transitioning over to Utah's had to make up for Cam Rising. They've had to, defense is trying to do more, trying to score. You got maybe guys having to push to that extremity, and maybe that's led into some of their depth issues. I don't know. What do you think, Sly?
I have a different opinion on doing that. I see what you're saying, and I definitely think teams do that all the time, but I hate when teams do that.
Pulling it off.
If you could score, right? What was the Baylor game this year like for BYU? Right? You get up 28-7, 28-0, you damn near let them come all the way back.
Yep.
Yeah. Right? And so that's what I hate. I like, put them in the dirt. I don't let off the gas till the fourth quarter if I'm up by 28+. But personnel, whatever, I'm still on the attack. That's my philosophy. So if I'm ever a coach, you just know that that's not happening for me. I'm not pulling off the gas. I don't care about my opponent's
What about
feelings.
Shifting the attack to where you're just trying to shorten the game in that you're still running your best stuff, but if it's your best rush stuff.
Yeah, run short passes, run screens.
Yeah.
You're still running the clock that way, but you're still being aggressive in certain capacities. Run short passes, the slants, right? You may not get a lot of yards, but you're getting stuff. Right? Like, you can still be aggressive in some capacities and still be safe, right? Say I'm running those. I guess if you want to prevent a turnover, the bubble screen stuff, like that's high risk plays. But like, you can do things that are still. You tell the quarterback, look, if the fade isn't there to attack downhill, keep it, take the sack.
Yeah. Or
try to run with your legs. Right? That's at the end of the game. That's keeping the clock going. Yada yada yada. And I'm with that. But BYU's been doing a great job of running the football. They had 252 yards rushing and 40 minutes of freaking time of possession.
Yep. And now they got LJ Martin going.
Those are my two. Back to back 100-yard games.
Now you're getting 100-yard rusher.
Yeah,
and that's a big deal.
Those are my two big statistics when I go and look at a football game: time of possession and rushing yards. That means you're in control.
Yeah.
Right? And they're 40 minutes. Utah was 42 minutes against Oklahoma State this year. I know we didn't freaking score that many points, but we were in control. And so that's the same thing with BYU. 40 minutes on the clock, going all the way 2 time zones, making that happen. That's dominance right there. And so, again, that's me not throttling off, keeping the gas going, change personnel, whatever, because those guys want to score too. So you want to keep that excitement going and keep them going with all of that. But, for me, BYU is just doing a good job right now because I think they understand that they got a team.
Yeah.
And they're playing confident.
Yeah.
They're playing Kalani, I call it, right? They're playing like Kalani. They're playing extremely confident to where they can throttle off and be okay.
Yeah.
Right? And they've been tested in those short wins, short capacities, letting teams back in the game. They've seen it all. Good defenses, SMU, they've been in those close contests where they're not, okay, we're in this close contest, what am I going to do? They're not questioning themselves, and that's what makes BYU dangerous.
And I will also add that Aaron Roderick and Jay Hill are both coaching like Kalani. You know what I mean? Like, they are confident. They know that they have guys that are going to go execute what they want them to do. Last year, it didn't feel that way at all.
Right.
And there's been past years at BYU where it didn't feel that way at all. But right now, even in special teams, to trust your guys to run that fake field goal, which was executed perfectly,
right.
I mean, there's a confidence with everything they're doing right now, and it's very aggressive, but they believe in their players that they're going to be able to execute. And I feel like Utah doesn't believe, and that's part of the biggest problem here, is there seems to be a lack of trust a lot around, and no one's talking about it. Everyone's saying the right things.
Right.
But here's the harsh reality. Your quarterback's not getting it done.
Yeah, I was going to say belief follows performance.
Absolutely.
No,
and
you know what belief that's not backed by performance is? It's delusion.
Right.
So,
and there was some delusion with Cam. Let's be honest, because the performance this year, even when he was healthy, wasn't up to his standard.
No.
So, Sly, now that we transition to Utah, where do the Utes go from here? Because 4 losses in a row feels like the sky is falling. Mm-hmm. Truth is, back in 2017, Utah went through a similar series where they lost 4 games in a row.
They got it together.
Tyler Huntley was a sophomore. Zach Mosley was a young Utah team, but the sky didn't fall. They figured some things out. So what does Utah need to do right now at this point to get this under control so this doesn't spiral into a program issue instead of just a season issue?
Yeah, and everybody needs to realize the sky is falling because of the expectations for this year, right? I don't think the expectations in 2017 were what the expectations are today.
Not even close, no.
Right? And so that's why it feels that way. Because, I mean, we've lost 4 straight games. What's the most we've lost by in those games? 6 points?
Yeah.
Right?
If you score 24 points in all those games, you only lose one of them.
Right.
By 3 points.
And that's what I keep saying to my BYU dudes as we're talking about this. I was like, that D is still for real. It hasn't ended up in wins, but just look at the box scores.
They're still
14
top
points,
of the
10
nation
points, 7. I know, and so many things.
Yeah.
You can combine that plus an 8:30 start in Rice-Eccles Stadium. Although I've seen something that I haven't seen in my entire life.
TCU game, don't bring it up.
Well, no, I'm saying, have y'all looked on like StubHub and stuff?
Yeah.
Cheap tickets?
Yeah. Well, just availability.
Yeah.
It's like it's so broad.
Some
like,
folks are
there
selling their
Utah
tickets.
season tickets?
But that's what I'm saying.
Some Utah
What's
fans
going
who hold
on?
those tickets are looking to cash out.
Right.
Interesting.
And I get it.
And who are they going to be gobbled up by?
You know who?
Not a higher bidding Ute.
You know who.
I don't
They're
know
wearing
about
blue.
that.
Definitely don't want to see blue in that stadium.
Oh, you're going to see it.
But I think your question was, where do they go from here?
How do they stop the bleeding here and not allow this to become let it bleed into next season and beyond?
Yeah.
Because it feels like there's a fragility here, Sly.
Dig in.
We've talked about it off air. There's a fragility here I'm worried about because you just lost your offensive coordinator midseason. There's an identity with him. And a lot of teams are using negative recruiting against Utah with Kyle Whittingham's departure, whether it's this year or next. We know he's going to be gone soon. So there's uncertainty with Kyle Whittingham's future there. There's a lot of uncertainty with that program right now. How do they solidify this? How do they figure it out to not allow this to spiral into something that's negative beyond the season?
Well, for me, it's simple. You just got to dig in, right? The pieces are here. The framework is here. I mean, we're using negative recruiting, and I know these young kids aren't going to understand this, but, like, you need framework, right? As you said, like, it's here. Coach Whittingham's leaving, but we're leaving it in somebody who's been here for over a decade, right? It's here. Everything is here. The players are here. The support is here. You got the administration is here. This is all together. Now, when you leave, that's when things start fraying and fracturing. If you dig in right now, next year, whatever it is, fans too, if you dig in, it's all still here. So don't make it go all over the place and think that it's broken, and it's not. We just got to dig in our feet and make it happen. As Riley said, like, this defense is still here. This offense can be still here. The talent is here. Right? Just dig in, refocus, and get it done. Like, you don't need to go get another player. You're not going to get it this late in the season anyway. But, like, dig in with what you have.
Yeah, the cavalry's not coming. So
you are the cavalry.
Yeah, exactly.
Wake up, slap each other, do whatever you got to do. That's what I'm saying. My dig in is wake up. That's all you got to do. That game against BYU next week can be awesome if you dig in. You have the people. Just make it work.
And
dig in.
And Utah fans will forget about that 4-game losing streak real quick.
Real good. Oh, yeah.
If Utah spoils BYU's perfect season.
I'd love to be the guy to do that.
So that should be motivation, right?
Oh, yeah, simple.
So let's see how this Utah team responds next week. We know where BYU's at. They're riding high. Guys doing national television interviews. It's an interesting spot where both of these teams are right now as we enter this rivalry game. One thing that I think is going to really help Utah would be if they got some better production out of quarterback. We'll talk about that next. Riley, you got a game plan you think that can help. We'll dig into that next right here on a Football Friday. JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
And now, a look at traffic from the KSL Traffic Center.
Our first look at traffic for your Friday afternoon drive. Well, in Utah County, we have a couple of crashes. Northbound I-15 in Spanish Fork. This is right on the border going into Springville, and they have been blocking a left lane of traffic, and this is causing some backups. Then on the southbound side of I-15 in that same vicinity, a crash in Springville at 4th South. The rest of I-15 in Utah County looks good. Southbound I-15, Salt Lake County, already filling in and slowing down between 4500 South Murray to 72nd South in Midvale. No problems on the rest of your Salt Lake County freeways. Advanced Window Products offers Graber window coverings. High-end quality with the best warranty. Save 30% off when you mention KSL. AdvancedWindows.com. From the KSL Traffic Center, I'm Ricky Meese on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's the calm before the storm.
Lassiter getting it in! Touchdown!
For the first time since 2010,
Touchdown! Caleb Over!
the Holy War will feature Utah versus BYU as conference rivals.
Keeper from Retzloff. Retzloff shakes him up at the 5, the touchdown! Big boy football, Mekhi Bernard into the end zone.
And never have we seen so much on the line for both schools over the next 2 weeks. The Zone will get you ready for another chapter of this historic rivalry.
We going to war, baby.
Where so much is on the line for both schools. Your home for the best coverage of Utah and BYU football is right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
I'm ready for war.
It's a Friday, and we're talking football non-stop. All football, all the time. This is another edition of Football Friday with JJ and Alex, presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hey, don't miss your chance to win big every week on the KSL Sports Zone. Listen to the KSL Sports Zone all day on Wednesday for your chance to win. Who knows what you're going to win this week, but it's going to be cool.
It's going to be something.
You know what? Who could use a win? Utah.
My boys.
Now the question is, how can they do it? All right, and especially against a team that's playing like BYU right now. I think the key, guys, and it's pretty clear and obvious. It's pretty clear and obvious what the problem is at the offense, and I have a hard time being overly critical about it because we're talking about a true freshman that's thrown into a situation that nobody planned for, that he wasn't ready for.
Right.
But he got thrust into it, and it is what it is right now. But the truth is it hasn't been good enough. They haven't got enough production out of that position in this 4-game losing streak. So how do they fix it right now? Because like you said in the last segment, Sly, you got to dig in right now, okay? So you got a bye week to dig in and figure it out. So what is Utah doing right now? They opened up a quarterback competition during the bye week. So Brandon Rose and Isaac Wilson are going head-to-head this week, 50-50 reps. Somebody here knows a lot about quarterback competitions. It's Riley Nelson. So have you ever seen something like this? Week 10? It's pretty wild.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, like, psychology and culture stuff going on. They're trying to shock it. But, like, look, at this point, you are 9. This is going to be your 9th game of the season. Like, here's what I haven't seen yet with Isaac Wilson. I think Isaac Wilson is the guy unless you have unless he has so many scars from his experience up to this point in the season that you need to just like let him heal and regroup and give him a spring ball and some of that time to forget. Like if he truly isn't that guy. But listen, there should not be a drop back pass game in the playbook. You can get enough off of he should be moving in the pocket. Sorry, let me back up. As to having watched Isaac Wilson 2 years at Corner Canyon, and this dude goes down and gives number 1 team in the nation, Bishop Gorman, all they can handle.
The business.
Yeah, watch him. You know, they came up short, but then watching him run the state in Utah. Isaac didn't play perfect, and Isaac actually was not like this surgeon from the pocket. Their quarterfinal game, so it was at Corner Canyon, and I think they were playing Lone Peak last year in the quarters.
Yep.
It was 7-6 or like 10-7 or something. Lone Peak was up. They were up like 7-6 or they were up 10-7. Corner Canyon ended up winning that game, something like 35-14. Kerr comes out in the third quarter, and Isaac had like 8 straight runs. The dude plays so much better, more confident, more loose, more instinctive, more athletic when he is using his natural athletic ability. to expect him to be productive from the pocket, especially given the circumstance of this season. So, if you don't have design QB run in the play, and look, he's not gonna replace. I'm not talking about running him for production. I'm talking about running him for his own sake.
Confidence.
Yeah, but if you don't have QB run, you better install install a QB power, install a quick GT in there. A fold draw. There's some very simple things that you can install that are basically the same thing, but rather than same thing that the offense is already running, rather than him handing it off, Isaac's running it. Do that. Anytime the ball should come out of his hand, the ball should come out of his hand outside the tackle box. It should be off play action. It should be straight roll out, straight sprint out. Borrow BYU's, Aaron Roderick's, borrow this dash concept that they do, where they take kind of the two-step drop, invite the edge rushers inside, then they pin him inside, and you get outside the pocket. But dash, sprint out, play action, and get the dude running. That is your best chance for success, because that's the best way to get Isaac out of his head. I used to joke when I was playing that I really didn't start seeing the field until I had a grade 1 concussion. and the reason
I know what you mean though.
But that was two-field. One, I was overly analytical. If I look back at one of my biggest weaknesses for
Riley?
I know, right? You couldn't believe it. But I was overly analytical, so I kind of need that physicality to get me back into the instinctual kind of animal nature of the game. But then second is it happens naturally when you start breathing heavy and your body's responding, trying to give resources to your brain and your muscles and all that stuff. It just automatically, physiologically brings you down to a much closer to a flow state and gets you out of your game. I watch Isaac and I look in his eyes and I look at him looking over at the sideline and I look at him calling. The way you can tell, the way that he steps into the huddle, here's telltale. Okay, here's what I'd be coaching Isaac up on this. But I see it. He either gets it into his helmet or gets it from the sideline. He opens it up. His eyes go straight to the wristband, right? A lot of his calls in the huddle are off the wristband. Here's what a vet QB does. Does that? No, okay. They close it. They leave it, or they close it. They walk into the huddle. They look the guys in the eyes. They start the play call. It's still there, just to make sure that you're double checking, not reading anything. You're reading it, but you're not really reading it because you got the playbook memorized. And you're saying that while you're looking the guys in the eyes. You close it. Hey, remember on this, right?
Finish the call.
Yeah, if you finish the call, if you got the 5 technique, remember your spacing on that. We want to be 2 yards inside our normal landmark or whatever onto it, and then you break. What I see from Isaac is he gets the call, he reads it, he goes into the huddle, does not make eye contact with anybody in the huddle, reads the play, says ready, break, closes it, everybody claps, and everybody goes. And I know that there's a little bit of command, that some of that can be learned as a freshman, but that for me just tells me that he's calling stuff that he's still questioning and calling. So get him out of his own head and run the stuff that he knows and he likes, and that Care ran at Corner Canyon. And that is
for weeks, yeah.
And that is running the football. He is an athlete at quarterback. He is not yet a quarterback who is athletic. He is an athlete playing quarterback, and so play to those strengths and eliminate all that stuff, and that's going to give you your best chance if Isaac is the horse you're riding. He's like, hey man, I've been saying that.
No, I'm not that. It's I agree with you. You want to see the tempo, exactly what he's saying. The transition from play to play. Receiving the call out of the huddle, relaying it to your guys in the huddle, and then pre-snap read before the snap. Look at that whole time before the last play, that whole transition. He is not confident with that, right? And that's not cool. Like if you watch him in Corner Canyon, it's we were here covering his Corner Canyon Farmington game.
You and I called the game right on this turf a year ago.
He had surgery that week.
Yes.
And still came out. We're like, I don't know. I know I was. I was like, I don't know. I don't know why he's doing that. It's just Farmington. Yada. And he crushed it. 6 touchdowns in the first half.
Yeah.
And he was running the ball. He was doing all kinds of stuff. And so, but the way he was getting in and out of the huddle, I got this, is what I saw. Now, when you're in the huddle, what you're saying, Riley, is completely correct, but also the way he's articulating it. The confidence in his voice when he is saying the plays, the guys can feel that. And that can change everything. I'm just thinking that you're saying that, I'm just like Aaron Rodgers. I know when Big Ben's in the huddle, that guy had the ultimate confidence. He had the craziest deal, and I'm just like, I could play behind that. I can get that, and I get it. So it's not exactly reading it as well, but it's how you're doing it, your swagger, you're in and out, you are the leader, you are carrying the morale of the offense. I think that's why Cam Rising being out just killed everything.
Yeah.
And so, like, you get this overzealous young guy, you got to reinstill in everybody that you got this. Right? Everybody that's young, freshmen, Jaden Daniels right now in the league, who's been another freshman that's just taken over an offense.
C.J. Stroud last year.
Right? He's came in there with this swagger, this confidence, and like, look, I got you guys. Right? You got me, I got you. Let's make this happen. Boom, play. Right? Cam Rising, when he took over for Charlie Brewer 2 years ago at San Diego State.
Yeah.
The way he got in there, he's like, I got it. First play, he takes off and runs for 15, 20 yards, something like that, and hits the defender. You see the whole sideline. Oh, he jumped up, got back in the huddle. Everybody's like, oh, he's going, we going.
Yeah.
That's what needs to happen.
The other thing, I know technically eligibility-wise he's a true freshman, but he ain't a true freshman anymore. Like, he's played in how many games now? 7, right?
Right.
Played in 7 games?
He's been here since January.
Yeah, and he's been here since January. So it's like no more to eliminate those excuses. We need the command. We need that. Here's another thing when I talk about going back to, like, game plan action mechanics. I looked this up. BYU's got 11. The defense got 11 picks on the season. 8 of them are between the hashes. Like, they're linebackers and playing games with the QB's eyes, gaining depth, and then those safeties and taking advantage of things like tip balls and driving on in-breaking routes. That is their specialty. It's not like they got a bunch of, like, who's the dude for the Cowboys? It's Diggs, but Trayvon Diggs.
Yeah, Trayvon.
It's not like they got Trayvon Diggs. It's on the edge, picking off a bunch of passes one-on-one or jumping out routes to the sideline. BYU causes a lot of havoc. Those linebackers and those safeties are great. That's where the majority of their interceptions come. So that's another reason why if I'm Bajakian or if I'm Utah, I'm like, I want Isaac out of the pocket. I want us trying to complete balls outside the hashes. It's okay. Like, that's one concession I'm willing to make. I'm willing to make concessions of completing balls over the middle of the field in this game. There are plenty other ways for us to gain yards and put together drives. And by there, you eliminate exponentially the potential for negative stuff happening to Isaac if you can pull him out of his shell during this QB competition and during this bye week. You know, the one worry is something negative happens and it goes right back in. But the game plan can kind of limit that downside if architected properly.
Yeah, some observations I've seen to back up what you're saying, Riley, and you, Sly, is watching Isaac the last 2 years in high school, especially as a senior year, play with so much joy, fire, confidence, and swagger. And now I'm watching him now, and like, I don't recognize this kid.
That kid, yeah.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Riley. He's pulling the thing up. He's looking at it. He's going on. He's just executing the play. He's going through the there's not that joy and that fire, and maybe I'll call it that alpha that you're getting at, where Kyle always referred to Cam as an alpha dog, like he's the alpha.
Why would he do that, right?
It's what Riley's talking about. Is you can come into he comes into the huddle and everything changes like that. Like there's a response to it. There's a confidence with what he's doing. That's what's missing from Utah's offense right now.
Letting him get out and run and make plays with his feet contributes to that in a huge way.
Another observation I've made. What were the two most successful games that Isaac played this year? Utah State and Oklahoma State. What did he do in those games? He got out and ran. He made some big plays with his legs. He had a nice play in the Utah State game when they were struggling, where he almost scored on down the goal line, and everything kind of changed after that, and he got hot in that third quarter and got him going in that game. Oklahoma State, he had that big, 30, 40-yard run, and then all of a sudden the offense started getting going a little bit more. Riley, you're exactly right. You've got to get him doing exactly that.
It's a rhythm.
You got to get him out of his head and out of the pocket.
He was the leading ball carrier. Now, some of these are sacks, but 150 carries, 1,300 yards in high school. And I know this isn't high school, but I'm just saying that that's part of his,
a 1,000-yard rusher.
Game.
If you can run for 1,300 yards at the 6A level in Utah.
4,000 yards passing, too?
Yeah.
1,000 yards rushing, 4,000 yards passing. He was getting it
over
done.
5,000 yards total offense.
In the state championship game, he had a 70-yard, 80-yard run. We're like, dang.
For a touchdown, yeah.
I'm like, oh, this kid can get out.
Right.
He doesn't look like that, and that's a confidence thing, and I think you got to build that back by doing things like that.
I think, let's assume he's going to win this quarterback competition during the bye week, and they got to get him right and get him going for BYU.
If they don't start him, they're basically fine letting him transfer.
I wouldn't transfer.
I agree. I wouldn't. I'm not saying it's the prudent thing, but I'm saying in college football in 2024, that's what's going to happen.
I would be.
Would be what?
Fine with letting him transfer.
Oh.
Get
You think you've
out.
seen enough?
No.
You're saying if he wants to go,
if
let him go.
you want to leave,
Yeah.
leave. And that's the problem with Utah right now. We're coddling all these kids' freaking feelings. I don't want you to leave, so let me force this into you. Brent Keithy, don't leave. Dorian Singer, don't leave. Yeah, let me force the ball into you. And we suck.
The tough thing is that
Stop coddling these kids.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to leave, football is not easy. Whenever it's easy, you lose.
Yeah.
It's simple as that.
You know who didn't leave, Sly? Mekhi Bernard.
Yeah.
Who's been their best player this year?
And Mekhi
Bernard.
alwa's been put back on the back burner
He's
as
had
far as the
reasons to
running back
leave.
position.
Yeah.
He's had many reasons to leave, and he stayed, and he led this team this year. Even the first game of the year, SUU, he got 5 carries. And then every game after that, he was getting his carries. He was getting 17, 18, 20. He was getting 130, 140 yards a game. And then we took it back. 11 carries here, 13 carries here. He's always had to take the back burner. We don't want to give him 25-plus carries.
Right.
Why not?
Right.
I'm speaking more broad stroke culturally. I don't want my comments to be misconstrued as like some prediction because Mike Wilson, the dad of who's raised, all these great players and all that stuff, I think he believes what you believe. And but in spite of that, it is just the culture now. Like if you get somewhat embarrassed or you feel that you're in any way typecast, nobody hangs around to like take that bet of whether or not they're going to be able to overcome it. They go try and hit the restart button.
Right. And if you have a bad experience.
Jack Tuttle did that.
And who just finally retired after playing how many places? Right. Same thing. He didn't even last a semester at Utah. You're right, though. In today's day and age, there's always this feeling of maybe there's something better out there. And kids are going to pursue that. And if they're really unhappy, we don't know. We don't know I'm speaking generally with these kids these days, with where they're going, with having now the ability to. They have the ability to transfer more often than they did in the past.
Successful transfers are running 2-something. Let's think about Dylan Gabriel, right? He runs to Oklahoma.
Right.
And then he runs to Oregon. Like, that dude's just chasing extra zeros, right, as far as NIL money goes.
Right.
But the guys,
it's a good opportunity too. You got Dan Lanning as your coach,
right? I know, and that's why. But I'm saying he's running to something. I can't really think of a situation where a guy ran away from something. Jalen Hurts back in the day, that was pre-NIL.
Jaden Daniels kind of ran away from something.
That was a different situation. Even Jaden Daniels' situation was different.
Right.
Arizona State was a mess.
Didn't he leave when Herm got fired?
Yeah.
That's not what I'm talking about.
He checked out mid-season, right?
Did he?
No, he didn't.
What they made that big deal about he's not here anymore. Remember they had that big thing in the locker room? Wasn't it?
No.
Am I remembering that wrong?
Yeah,
is Arizona State
I'm pretty sure when Herm left and that kind of program imploded was when he left.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't think so. We
can
look that up.
We'll look it up in the break.
There we go. We got time. We're going to get to a break right now. Great conversation. It continues next here on JJ and Alex on a Football Friday, 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
Jazz are the worst team in the NBA this year, and there are going to be loud fans that are just, the Jazz, why would I ever go to that? We get responses, I see it on my Twitter, etc. There are still 70,000 diehard Jazz fans that cannot wait to talk about the Jazz.
You know what's funny? Those same fans that you're talking about, with the Jazz, this bad. I guarantee you the overlap between that group and the group complaining that they didn't lose enough games is way higher than you think.
Oh, yeah, the Venn diagram's near a circle.
They're like the same people. Like, you just can't win with some people.
Yeah.
Like, I never thought the bottom would be this bad. Larry Miller is spinning in his grave, blah, blah, blah. It's the same person who was like, take note, why aren't they taking note? It's the same person.
Yep.
Which is bananas to me, but it's true.
Yeah, it's not gaslighting, but it doesn't matter what you do, you can't win.
Hear Jake Scott and Ben Anderson every day from 10 to noon on 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone.
Listen, everybody.
Real life hypotheticals to get your brain churning. As JJ and Alex ask, would you rather?
Nominate the U Sports volunteer that you know for the Hercules Hero of the Week. Submit your nomination at kslsports.com/contest. And listen every Thursday afternoon to JJ and Alex for the winner. Help us celebrate the efforts of those volunteers making an impact with the Hercules Hero of the Week, sponsored by Hercules First Federal Credit Union and Beehive Meals. I got a Utah Would You Rather and a BYU one. Let's start with Utah. Would you rather start Isaac Wilson this week or see what Brandon Rose could do with a full week of prep, reps, and a chance to play in the BYU game?
Are you asking me?
I'm
Me
asking
first?
both of you.
Oh, man. This is tough. This is why I don't envy none of the coaches' situations. You're in such a tough spot because you want to do something for the team, not the individual, right? You know you have to get Isaac Wilson's mental back, right? And you do that by playing him, showing him that you believe in him, yada, yada, yada. But it's not about him. It's about the team. So what's best for the team, right? Brandon Rose has been in this program for a long time. I don't know what your reason for not playing him in the past was. Why did you not throw him in at Northwestern when Bryson Barnes was trash?
Right.
Like, why did you not need a spark then? Right? Like, I don't know what their reason is for that, and maybe it's valid. Maybe he doesn't know the playbook. Maybe you can't trust him to run offense because the quarterback position is so tight. I don't know what that is. So I think the best decision, whatever this is, needs to be for the team, not the individual.
With so many opportunities that they have had in the last 2 seasons to trot Brandon Rose out there and play,
right?
It is so telling that they haven't. So what are we even talking about here? Like, unless I don't know. Unless
it sucks
Isaac's,
that we're talking about it, but it's the reality of the situation.
But I mean, from a Utah standpoint, like, there's got to be something that I don't know culturally about how Isaac just hasn't like gelled or fit in that locker room. Because what are you doing? Yeah, Brandon Rose has been passed up how many times? Obviously, the dude has not proven that he is it.
There. I don't know what that is. Yep. Yeah. So
they ain't saving him for this. They weren't saying like,
we'll wait till we're 4-4.
Yeah, let's wait till we're 4-4, and we need a guy to come rescue us in the rivalry game.
Going into an undefeated rivalry game against an undefeated team. That's what we were saving you for, Brandon. Come save us. No, that's not what you were saving for. So go with the game plan. Make the best decision for the team for me.
Yep.
So
Wilson,
here's a BYU/Utah one. However you want to frame it for each of you. Would you rather see your favorite team in this rivalry game win the game in a blowout or win a classic?
Right now, for me, a blowout. I want a blowout. For me, just the way this team has gone this year, I want a blowout.
You got to score points to blow someone out.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it would be so surprising and so amazing. But
8:30 kick in Rice Stadium. I'm not messing with. Okay, last one. They were up 27. Mm-hmm. Let's go through the last games in Rice Stadium. Okay.
Yeah.
Up 27. Game prior to that was Taysom went for 2, stuffed Taysom. That one wasn't at night, I don't think.
No.
Or that one wasn't like at night. I think that one kicked at like 5 or 6, but still, it happened when it was dark.
Correct.
One before that, if I'm not mistaken, JJ's pulling up on the laptop. I think that was me, senior year 2012. Missed 3 field goal attempts.
Yeah,
right?
we all remember. See what I'm saying? That's a classic, right?
No, it wasn't. my redshirt freshman. Talking about
not
wanting
a classic
to try someone
for you.
New. Talking about try someone new. Redshirt freshman.
There's only been 3 BYU games at Utah since then?
Yeah, because we had some off years.
Yeah, they didn't play.
It's alternating. Am I right? So it was that was 2019, 2017, or 16, something like that.
Isn't that crazy?
Then 2012, and then 2010. Another missed field goal.
Yeah, Brandon Burton blocked
blocked, because they were both blocked. My year, it was blocked, but it stayed in bounds, so we got the illegal foul on the field. Then we missed a second, line up offsides, move 5 yards forward, and then we doink it off the left upright. But those are the last 4 games from Rice Stadium. So, and look, I think that Taysom year, Utah was probably the better team. So Utah probably punched above their weight. I also think that Zach Wilson year, I think Utah was probably the better team. I don't know if you guys remember, and I'm not quite remembering. JJ, you're pulling up the thing, so check me if I'm wrong on that. But like that 2019, Utah probably the better team.
No doubt. 2019, that team was great.
That was when Tyler went out and we had Jason Shelley, right?
Yeah,
that team was in the Pac-12 championship game.
Yeah, the fact that we were up in that game is like crazy, right?
Yep.
That's what the 2 targeting calls back to back. Yeah, Kalani went nuts.
That the Taysom
Francis
game,
Bernard pick 6.
You had Taysom and stuff, but that was early in the season. Ty Detmer, new offense, that wasn't the best. But so Utah probably, I don't know, that one's maybe even. I'd probably say Utah was a little bit better team that year. I don't know what records proved that year. 2012, I think we were better than that team. This pivotal plays. Obviously, it came down to it.
It was a 5-7 Utah team that year.
That's what I'm saying. We were better, and
100%.
we were 9-4. We lost that game for a couple of reasons. One, we were about to go up 10. Starlu Tulele got my freshman center. All sorts. We were in that south end or that north end zone. All sorts of nervous. Utah never. How often you run a 3-man front when you were there, Sly?
Well, we stopped after 2006
Yeah.
Harleen.
Okay, so they stopped. Yeah. Well, guess what? They went back because they knew we were starting a redshirt freshman center who was only 280 pounds against Starlo Tulele, 10th pick later on in that draft, and just worked it anyway. Center snaps it over the shoulder. Mike and Lisa and I do our best impression of Curly and Mo and run into each other trying to fall on it. Anyway, and then 2010, I don't remember what Utah was like, but Utah wasn't that great, but we weren't that great. But I think
2010 was the first year in the Pac-12. They actually overachieved that year. They went to the Sun Bowl.
Okay, that was
11.
And we were 6
Oh,
and
that's
6.
right. That was 11.
Was that 11?
Yeah, 2010 is when we lost to TCU.
That's
on
correct.
Game day.
2010.
I was like,
Utah.
I was out of here in 9.
Utah was 9-2 in 2010.
Okay, so Utah was the better team.
Correct.
So I guess what I'm trying to say.
Sorry, I confused the years. You're right. 2010 was the last Mountain West
I'm
year.
trying to go there to be like, all right. So we just went through the last 4 matchups.
Yeah.
One before that, we don't want to talk about for my boy Max Hall. We're not going to dredge up those memories, but we're going to go back to 2010. So Utah probably the better team. In 12, we were the better team. So probably of the last 4 matchups in Rice-Eccles Stadium, Utah was probably the better team twice. BYU was probably the better team twice, but Utah ended up winning all 4. All of which block field goal, missed 2-point conversion,
wild comeback,
up 20-7 going into the fourth quarter. All of which lose. So long way of saying winning a blowout. I want the like. If you give me my chance, I need the blowout because if it's even close,
you don't
there
care
is
about
some
historical
dark magic.
significance.
You
don't care what everyone remembers about the game. You just want to kick there. You know what?
I texted my boy Braden Brown. He was my my left tackle, right? So he was my right tackle. So as a lefty, he's protecting my blind side. And he's gone on. He's a great professional, and he's a doctorate himself. And he helps out, in addition to his day job, he helps out with some of the mental performance stuff on the football team. And I was sending him all these Lord of the Rings gifts because there is some there is some Sauron dark magic going on in Rice-Eccles Stadium when it comes to BYU. And so they need to be like humble little like Frodo. Going in there and just climbing the mountain and drop that ring in the fire so that we can
Was
get
Frodo
these
humble?
When he
put that ring on, he was something else.
Okay, Samwise. All right, then, be Samwise.
Yeah.
Sam was a humble guy. I like Sam.
Frodo kind of was an arrogant twerp.
I
I don't know how we got Lord of the Rings into a football show.
It's because of the dark magic of Rice-Eccles Stadium when BYU plays there. It doesn't happen with others.
It doesn't. Weird things happen on Rivalry Night. I can't wait to find out what happens. We're going to dig into this more. We're going to relive some of you guys' favorite rivalry moments. We'll get into that next here on a Football Friday. JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's a Friday, and we're talking football non-stop. All football, all the time. This is another edition of Football Friday with JJ and Alex, presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, welcome back. It's a Football Friday. We're kicking off a second round right here on JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Fun first hour there. We're at Farmington High School for Game Night Live tonight, as Farmington, the Phoenix, will host the American Fork Cavemen in a 5 versus 12 6A state playoff matchup. We call it the second round, but during the break, Riley made a good point. It's essentially the first round.
Yeah. I told
now we have a 16-team bracket. It's go time. And so this is a big-time game tonight. We're excited for it. We're here because we think this is going to be a good one. There's action all across the state, so go to KSLSports.com. We've got several games that are going to be live. The KSL Sports Rewind guys have games. We've got games. If you're listening right now, what else are you doing tonight? Go watch some high school football playoff action on KSLSports.com. It's going to be a great night. We're focused here on college football on a Football Friday. And it's brought to you by our good friends at the Doug Smith dealerships. For an incredible selection on Kia, Subaru, Chevy, Jeep, Dodge, or Ram, visit Doug Smith dealerships in Linden and Spanish Fork. Great service starts with know-how, and nobody knows how like Doug. More Football Friday here. A rivalry game conversation coming up right now after the cut.
It's time for the biggest story of the day. This is what made the cut with JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
So next week we're going to get into the X's and O's. We're going to break down the matchups. I assume we're going to know who's going to be starting at quarterback for Utah next week. But
nope.
You know what happens when you assume things.
It won't be announced.
You know what happens when you assume things, and I can't say it on the radio. So who knows, right?
I don't love anything more in life, not even my own kids or wife, more than Kyle Whittingham loves not announcing a quarterback.
You could not love a human child more than you love the mind games of Kyle Whittingham.
He's so tough, man. He likes this competition. It brings the best out of him. You know, Tomlin always said 2 dogs, 1 bone is how he always referenced it. He has all these weird little sayings and stuff like that, but you know, everybody loves it. Competition is supposed to bring the best out of everybody, and hopefully when you win that competition, you're at an all-time high of confidence, which will hopefully shower among your teammates. And so you know, mid-season, what we need to pick me up. You need to make it happen. You know, Coach Whittingham knows tough football, so if he has to get back to his 80s and 90s of how to play, then I think that's where he's most comfortable.
Kyle Whittingham knows how important this game is. Kalani Sitake knows how important this game is.
It's all anybody talks about in the offseason.
You guys know how important this game is. Do the players know? Do you feel confident that the Utah players know what's at stake in this game? And Riley, do you feel like the BYU players in this game, some of them have only been here for a year or two and haven't played in 3
months.
So
we haven't had this game for a while.
You remember that?
Oh yeah.
You know who that is? I'm showing him a picture of Alex Rodriguez, Jason Varitek.
Yes.
And I was watching that documentary that's new on Netflix about the Red Sox coming back, and I looked up this picture because they have a little thing on it. I sent it back to my brother. I was like, sports were better when teams were allowed to hate each other.
Yep.
So when you say, do the players get it? This is old man of me, like get off my lawn or whatever of old man, but no, not in the way that Sly and I did, not in the way that Morgan Scally clip of him talking.
That was Sam that posted that today.
Yeah, that's making the rounds.
Yeah.
Back in 2004.
What was the Chad? What year was it? I remember Chad Lewis telling the story of one of the BYU players going up into the stands at Rice Eccles. There was the fight after.
No, it was Derek Stevenson.
Oh, is that who it was?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
What was that story? Tell that story.
I don't know. I mean, we need to call up Derek Stevenson to have him tell the story. I'm pretty sure his dad got in a fight.
Yeah, but
his
we're not
dad got in a fight,
truth.
or something happened in the stands with his father, and he went up there to go kill somebody.
But Chad told the story because he was worried about his brother, because his brother, who was playing for Utah at the time, was running. He was like, he always ran hot than me. Like Chad was always like, I never really got in a fight. It was never worth my time. But I got drug into fights because of my brother.
Yeah.
And like Chad remembers going over
the Jokic brothers.
Yeah, because his brother like saw red, and so he goes over there like, I got to make sure my brother doesn't go assault a fan. You know, get charged with assault because he knocks out in a fan. Anyway, but like that stuff ain't. That's not 2024. Everybody's cool because everybody was on the same 7-on-7 teams together, and everybody and it's also not cool to be angry anymore. Yeah, like Kobe ain't cool anymore because you know it's just soft. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe we see a display next Saturday night that is different from what I'm saying. But I just feel, this is the old man, I feel that kids today either were not raised, conditioned, or are not allowed. They either aren't or they're not allowed to have that same intensity that rivalries past had.
I can run through key players in this game.
So that's maybe a generational or more of a sociological thing. Compound that with 10 years of being not in the same conference, playing intermittently, and the game never being truly meaningful, always being played like week 1 through 3.
And with the athletic department / football programs trying to temper this down and downplay it, like we don't need them, they don't need us. That's happened too, right?
Yo, people
and you
get
even
shot.
have fans. Like I call them hipster fans. They're like, nah, we don't need that game anymore. I'm more worried about when Utah's in the Pac-12. I'm more worried about Arizona or BYU would be like, I would rather go beat Tennessee than play Utah. You know what I mean? Like, now they're back in the same conference.
That's loser talk.
I think that, and it's unfortunate because I've talked about this on this show. I don't think we fully understood the gravity of BYU and Utah joining this conference together after 14 years of being apart.
Right.
A, because it's Power 4 football, the highest level, and being together at the highest level is a big deal. But B, it forces them to play each other every year again. in November when it really matters.
Will it though? Sorry,
Yeah.
because the Big 12 doesn't have divisions.
No, but they have priority
Okay,
scheduling.
good.
So
That's why we always play
Arizona and
Pac-12
Arizona
schools.
State will always play each other.
Okay, got
They've
it.
set up this thing to try to make sure that like Kansas State.
Utah, Colorado. will
That's why
always
BYU
play.
doesn't play Colorado until I think 2028.
Got it.
Because
So they
they're prioritizing
rivalries.
certain
Smart. That's good.
matchups so that they have those
didn't
games so
know
they
that.
don't lose that tradition. And so this game's going to be played every year in the Big 12. Trust me. Your Mark
will
understands
not,
and gets it.
Yeah.
You've talked to him about it.
Yeah.
We've talked to him about it. He gets it. So this game's going to be played every single year. With that said, I can name off key players in this game that have never played against each other. They haven't played in a BYU Utah game, and it's never been an important thing in their mind.
Right.
Mekhi Bernard's the only one I can think of right now that's going to be a major factor in this game that I remember playing in that 2021 game. I could be wrong. Like that played a major role. He rushed for 100 yards in that game. It was one of his big games early on in his career. But it's been a while. It's been 3 years. So do these players really understand it like you guys did? Do they really understand the history and everything that goes into it? Do they understand why the fans are so passionate about it? I think that matters.
Yeah.
I think that matters. So, it's an interesting conversation to have is what does the rivalry game go from here? How does this now intensify it? And I think that right now it feels like it had some water doused on that fire because of Utah's struggles.
Yeah. I think the fervor for this rivalry game comes from the fans. For these transfer portal guys who doesn't know Utah, these new people to the program that's never been a part of this game, the people that's only seen, like me, I'm just imagining what it was in 2006 when I came to the program, and I was first,
that was the height.
Integrated.
That period of time was, and I grew up with this. I'm 47 years old, and I've covered it for 20 years.
It was never competitive until the 2000s.
That era was the most intensely competitive era in the rivalry's history.
05 to 15 was
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
So you guys played in that era. You understand it.
Oh yeah.
I don't think a lot of kids do today.
I was instantly ingrained. As soon as that week started, I heard it coming in. It was the last game of the season, so it was just whatever. But when that week started, oh man, you felt it in the city.
Yeah.
There was smoke in the city. You're just like, oh, that game's coming. Every single day around the facility, around campus, you felt the game. I've never felt that before. That was crazy. Every experience, every convenience store, every restaurant, whether it was Chuckarama or Village Inn, you feel that entire week, and that comes from the city, that comes from the fans. And so if you guys want to get these new guys, these transfer portal guys that don't have anything to do with Utah or hasn't had anything to do with Utah, they don't understand this, you guys bring that energy. As players, we feed off of the crowd, right? The crowd gets loud. That's why everybody's raising the crowd on third down, doing this in the fourth quarter. We got the transition from third quarter, fourth quarter with the Ty Jordan and Aaron Lowe memorial thing. That energy comes from the crowd, but this BYU game comes days leading up to that game. And that's how you get integrated and people start to care. And then once you start getting it, and you're talking about the little voodoo, whatever's going on at the stadium.
Dark magic.
That happens in the game, and the crowd is getting into it. The players feel that. That's how you get ingrained in this. Isaac has history in this, right? Brother to BYU. They grew up Utah fans. There's a huge dynamic, man. So it's easy to get ingested into this rivalry.
Yeah. I will say, Sly brings up a good point. I might be a little too judgmental or critical of players in this generation or in this rivalry this year because that intensity is built up through gameplay. The rest of it is just noise. It's just a bunch of dogs on the other side of a fence yapping.
Right.
If the real intensity is built when you open that gate and then those dogs go face to face, are they really going to go at each other? Or are they going to, is that yap and stop and they each go their separate ways? So
with their tail between their legs.
These players have not had the opportunity to have that gate open and to be able to get at each other. And we'll see. I hope it's ferocious. And can I say another thing? You talk about the universities and everyone calling for civility and tamping
Who's
it down.
calling for civility?
It has
There was
been.
plenty.
Was
Trust
there?
me, there was. Oh yeah.
Oh,
Don't
let me meet those people.
But here's the thing. It was because there was no outlet for it, right?
Right.
When the game was being played intermittently,
It's like blah.
people had to that energy and intensity got channeled into dumb stuff like online spats or like neighbors going at each other or like fights at church or whatever.
I want to see that.
I should say arguments, not fights.
By the way, this game's only been played 10 times in the last 15 years.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Now that it will actually be played, the intensity will come from the actual gameplay, where I would say more of it has come from all the crap around the game that nobody really likes. But when that's all you got, it's like livestock, right? Obviously, they want to eat grass and they want to eat hay, but when there's not grass or hay, they'll eat straw. And they know that, you know you're not getting any nutrition from straw, but at least it somewhat fills your stomach.
That's your Utah State coming at you.
Yeah, that's my broken roots coming. But now we don't have to live off straw anymore. We can actually eat grass and hay, and the rivalry would be so much healthier for it.
Yeah. In fact,
I'm just getting pumped. Like, I'm just thinking of those days where I was talking about 2006. I'm just remembering the whole season of 2008 because we were both good. Both schools were good. And that culmination coming into that game.
you guys were doing what you were doing.
Wait, you
BYU.
said 8?
Yo, 8.
Oh, all of them. All the
But
games.
eight-
but
eight
eight
sucked.
for me. Well,
Max threw 5 picks.
but I'm just talking about the
2008.
intensity. I'm talking about the intensity
I
leading
can
up
tell
into
you,
that
as someone
game.
who covered that season, that was the quest for
I
perfection
know.
at BYU. They
Was that
did
that
start
year?
perfect. This it was 2008.
Yes. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
They started
that was the
6-0.
They
and
only
went to
lost
TCU
2 or
and
3
lost.
games that year.
They were in the top 25, and they lost to TCU. That was a really, really, really good Utah team. You had Austin Collie, Max Hall, Harvey Unga, Dennis Pitta.
Right.
You know, those guys were
Oh, yeah.
big-time players. That game was unbelievable.
Right.
That was an awesome I know it wasn't awesome for BYU fans, the end result, but you could argue that was the most talent ever assembled for a BYU versus Utah game.
Well, and what made it? How did Utah do in 2007? Who was second? Because that was
You're talking about for the season or the game?
yeah, season. No, the game was 4th and 19.
Yeah. See,
Yeah.
but there's storylines
Yeah.
to every year.
There's,
06, Beck to Harleen.
Yeah,
Right.
4th and 18.
4th and 19.
Max Hall hates me.
That was 09.
2009, George in the overtime.
No, Hall to George. No.
And then 2010, you got Brandon Burton block field
Yep.
goal. There's storylines leading up. Those were
2009
games.
was actually Max Hate Me. What does Utah call 2008?
That was 2008.
No, Hate Me
No,
was
Max Hall
was
said
9.
that after beating
He did.
you guys.
Yeah,
in
he didn't-
2009?
He said
Yes.
that. I was there. He was said
Oh.
that because he said that in the
Because
post-game
what we
press
call-
conference.
what we
I thought it was after the
2008.
7 turnovers.
No. So he was referencing.
Yeah.
Okay. So Max Hall said that after beating you guys in the 2009 game. He was referencing the 2008 game.
Yeah.
That's
That's
the game
what
where
happened.
he had
he was
holding on to
referencing
it.
8.
that was the game where
He was
people
holding on
poured
to it.
I mean, people,
beverages on his family.
Yeah, but people pour stuff on Coach Whittingham's wife after the 09 game.
Well, and exactly, and that boiled
How
over.
are we? How are
Whit
we,
was
Max is
pissed.
my boy, and I'll defend him anyway. But like, that's a very loose definition of poor. Like, I've been around some drunk dudes at a lot of tight games. I don't know. Like, I've never seen someone
He
like
was
literally.
he was so angry.
When people get inebriated, like it's you
you know-
trip over stuff. Anyway, but no,
and
I was
most
just
guys
gonna
won't
say,
waste their alcohol.
But to
I
your
won't.
point, in 2008,
My wife gets in water fights. It's like, don't waste the good stuff.
there you go. Smart.
in
She's
your
a smart
point,
lady.
2008, like I love how many games have a name. 08, I was wondering what it was for Utah because for us it's just 5 picks. Like that was how we know 5.
It was the
That
turnovers.
that
It
was
7 turnovers.
That was
game.
the
I know,
crowning
7
game for the
total
2008 team.
Yeah.
They completed the regular season
that's
undefeated.
right. That's
they
the
won the
Sugar Bowl
conference
year.
title. It was a Sugar Bowl year.
Yeah. But for that
and
game
then
specifically,
9
it
was
the
Hall.
7
9 was
turnovers.
overtime.
9 was
Hall.
revenge.
10 was the block field goal. 11, 54 to
Jake
10.
keeps
That one's
getting-
got its own name. 54 to 10.
Yep.
That's 54 to 10. I don't know what's the name for 12. For me, it's 3 field goals because we missed 3 field goals.
No,
at the end of
the
game.
2012-13 games are pretty forgettable. But then you get
Yeah.
the 35. The 2016 game was Taysom in Bryce Eccles Stadium coming up short. And
Yeah,
as
what was
we start-
13?
Oh gosh, I'll look it up right now. while you guys
13
are
was
talking.
back in Lavelle Edwards.
It was 20-13.
Was Taysom out? No, because
He was
Taysom played the whole year 2013.
Mike Elisa scored a touchdown in that game, but it was Carl the Truth Williams had a 2-yard touchdown pass from
Why couldn't
Travis
Taysom?
Wilson.
We had one touchdown.
Taysom Hill did play in that game.
No, I know.
Taysom
He didn't
was
get hurt that
18
year.
of 48.
Was that-
18 of 48. That's Taysom. Yeah, that was
54 to
But
10
Taysom-
John White? Or
Taysom,
was that,
no, that was 2011.
That was 11?
John White ran all over BYU that
down
day.
in
That was
Lavelle?
a 54
yeah,
to 10 game.
I remember I was because we had a game and I was watching that. I'm like, oh yeah, because I always had to bet Brett Kiesel and Chris Hoke. And I definitely got me and Chris Kimiati always won.
I gotta tell a quick story now that I see this stat line. Everyone's like, "How did you play in front of Taysom, man?" Because I'm like, he's one of the biggest freaks I ever met. Obviously now he's 9-10 year career in the NFL. Derek Carr's saying like, I don't know how, but he deserves a place in the Hall of Fame because he got the 10 touch, like receiving, rushing.
Nobody's
return.
ever done in the NFL.
Yeah, no one's ever done that stuff. And everyone's like, I was like, well, lucky for me, he completed like 40% of his balls in fall camp, and he came out that 2013 year. I remember that he's rocket lasering ball, like slants 3 yards in front. Like you talk about a 56-foot pitch in baseball. He was doing that with like slants and outs. Obviously, he got way better from there, but how many rushing attempts? Why would you throw the ball 58 times?
Yeah, let me go
How many
back.
rushing
this
attempts
is the
do
other
you have?
game. Let me pull it up for you.
Oh,
here.
sorry. We're
No,
getting down a rabbit hole here. But
so 20-13, the 2013 game. How many rushing attempts did he have?
Yeah.
He ran 20
Still
times.
30. Oh, my gosh. Look at
So
the
he
usage
ran the
rate.
ball 20 times and he threw it 48.
Yeah, but look, 20 for
Taysom Hill
130.
either ran or threw on 68 possessions in that game.
Cow. Oh, and we ask ourselves, why did he struggle with injuries at BYU?
That's a lot of
hilarious.
possessions for one guy.
It's a lot of plays.
Man,
So,
hopefully this year
yeah.
delivers something, dude. Hopefully it delivers
Well, that's what I
something.
wanted. That's what, in that would you rather. That's why I asked, because I think everybody right now on both sides just wants to win the game.
Yeah.
But listen to what we're doing. Right, we're talking about memories, and like there's things.
We're old heads.
The reason why this game is so great and why it's better than the other ones is because it has this history to it. It has this history that you
Games
can't
with names.
find anywhere else.
Is there like a podcast or something? Maybe there's a Twitter account or something called Games with Names.
Yeah.
That's what this rivalry is about. Like it's got
is.
games with names.
100% is. And so I value that as somebody that's watched it
You covered
as a
it.
sports
You
fan.
covered
Or I've covered it for 2 decades.
Right.
Like these stories are incredible. These games are incredible. I was in the end zone in 2006. I was in the end zone in 2008. I was there for these moments, and they're unbelievable. And fans need to have those experiences.
Yeah.
The players need to have those experiences because these memories last forever.
Right.
Stop selling your tickets, everybody.
Seriously.
Oh, that just makes me sick.
I know they're probably going for a lot, so I get the financial
No, they're
aspect
actually
to it.
not.
No,
They're
they're not.
not.
they're just basically
Someone just
giving
did
them
an
away?
analysis. They said
Yeah, no, they're not.
they said they're like barely above face value.
Okay, people, come on. Like Utah fans,
They're
gotta
down.
have a little bit more
They're
faith.
down 30%. For someone tracked it, and I don't know. I saw it on Twitter. They're down 30% from week 4.
Okay,
The prices are, and availability's up 20%.
I'll say this. I don't know. We're a few days out. I don't even know who's starting at quarterback for Utah. This game's going to be closer and more competitive than people think, because
At home with that defense, you
it's a
have to
rivalry
assume
game.
that.
It's Rice-Eccles Stadium, and I just feel like Utah is a wounded dog right now, and BYU has a lot of pressure on them right now.
They don't want to fumble the bag. It's hard.
I don't think BYU
Yeah.
had pressure at UCF because they were the underdogs, and in their brain they're like,
They're
we're going to
17-point
go show them.
favorites.
We're going to go show them. How does BYU respond when they're the favorite in a rivalry game
17
on the
points.
road? So
On
I'm
the
not
road by
predicting
17
anything right
points.
now.
That's
I'm just
crazy.
saying this game is going to surprise people with how competitive it's going
Yeah,
to be.
I agree.
And it could be special. So you never want to miss something special in this rivalry, as we were just talking. These are fun memories that last a lifetime. All right, we've got to take a break. More Football Friday right after this. JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
And now, a look at traffic from the KSL Traffic Center.
Traffic starting to build if you're making your way southbound 15 out of the downtown area this afternoon. It's pretty much in place now from about 53rd South. You'll see the heavier traffic leading right up and through 90th South. And then you get out of it a little bit, back into around 123rd and into Utah County. Really no problems over the point of the mountain. The problems in Utah County are on Redwood Road. That stretches from just about Main Street, Lehigh, all the way over to Pioneer Crossing. And if you're trying to go west to Eagle Mountain, that's going to be a mess on Pioneer also. I-15 in Utah County looks relatively good all the way from the point leading down to Orem and Provo and into Davis County. It's a clean ride. You'll see a little bit of that slower traffic right around the Riverdale-Roy area. Attention commercial property managers and business owners. Snow doesn't have a campaign manager, but you do. Choose GoPave Utah to clear your lot and win the winter. GoPaveUtah.com. From the KSL Traffic Center, I'm Marcus Jansen on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This is DJ and PK.
Joined now by Utah football coach Kyle Whittingham. How long does it take to shake off a loss or 4 of them? This isn't something you've had to deal with. This has got to be weird, quite frankly.
Yeah, it is, and I guess that's a positive that we have not had to deal with that, but obviously a huge negative that we're right in the middle of it. It's trying for everybody. The players, to their credit, have had a very positive attitude throughout practices and preparation, so that's been something that's been good to see. But bottom line, we got to find a way to get a W, and it's been a really tough month, to say the least. You know, we're trying everything we possibly can to get this thing turned around. I can tell you that. There's no stones left unturned, nothing that we're not evaluating, reevaluating, and we just got to keep searching for the answer. No shortcuts. It's nothing but hard work and trying to figure things out.
Catch DJ and PK mornings from 6 to 10 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It's a Friday, and we're talking football non-stop. All football, all the time. This is another edition of Football Friday with JJ and Alex, presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Welcome back to Farmington High School. JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. A Football Friday. Stevenson, Sylvester, Riley Nelson joining me here at Farmington High School with lunch from the KSL Sports Zone and Cafe Rio. Win lunch from the KSL Sports Zone and Cafe Rio on Taco Tuesday. Listen every Tuesday for your chance to win a $20 Cafe Rio gift card. Learn more about Taco Tuesday and the great deals available each and every week at CafeRio.com. Each and every week, the stakes get higher for the BYU Cougars. Now 8-0. 4 wins away from a perfect season. And if you look ahead, which the team can't do, but we can, there's a possibility that this team could run the table. The path is there. There's no doubt about it. In fact, according to ESPN FBI, BYU will be favored in all 4 games in the month of November. So, Riley, I'll start with you.
Which loss hurts the least?
It's
definitely not Utah.
Which game on the schedule concerns you the most?
Yeah.
Will BYU run the table? If they don't, what's that game that's going to
It's
get
Arizona State.
It's got to be the 2 away games.
Yeah, it's Arizona State.
Both away games. He's talking about Dark Magic at Rice-Eccles Stadium.
Yep.
Playing down in Arizona State's not great. I think that
And it's on a Friday.
A part of that 4-game
it's
losing streak in 2017 was down there at Arizona State as well. It's just weird. Of course,
Dude,
Arizona State hasn't been great.
Houston ain't got the juice.
No.
Despite what happened last week with Utah.
Hey,
Houston doesn't have the
man.
juice.
I thought that too, and freaking they beat us.
It's funny.
They got a good defense, but
you mentioned
you
mentioned games. I'm going to mention one you didn't. That Kansas game just has a weird.
It's at home.
No, it doesn't.
I know, but
no.
Kansas almost beat Kansas State on the road.
JJ,
You guys trounced freaking Kansas State.
Am I just
saying
trolling right now?
Are you saying this because
trying
Kansas
to
State
create
was
something
29-27?
that's not there? It's not.
Hold
there.
on, was that a backdoor 29-27? I didn't watch that game.
No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't.
Wow, Kansas was up
right
at the fourth quarter.
That team's showing
That's
some
wild.
fight. They're well coached. Lance Leipold's a good coach.
I mean, Oklahoma State was up on BYU too.
Right.
So, I mean, it might have been just a fluke game. But, I don't see that. That's not a game. Rice at LaVelle Edwards Stadium.
Also, they go Iowa State, BYU. So, Iowa State's going to beat them up. And then they got to come to Pro.
Those are 2 back-to-backs that are rough.
So, let me frame this, Riley, and then
it's Arizona State.
I have something to ask Sly about this because he's actually done it. You've experienced a undefeated season. It's not easy to do. What is the concern? What is the weakness you see with this BYU team that someone could take advantage of?
That they do run the table and they win the conference championship game, get slotted as the 4, and got to play, the number 2 of the SEC.
That sounds like an amazing problem to have.
No, let's lose to ASU, come back, win the conference championship. Or wait, no, do we want to shoot? They're not getting in. They're not getting in as 2 losses. How do we get
2 losses?
How do we get
no chance 2 losses?
How do we get in that to be that top seed? How do we get to be that 5 or 6 seed? How do you get that 6 seed?
You lose in the Big 12 championship game as an undefeated team.
Yeah. There you go. That's what I want then. Okay.
Because the rankings, by the way, the college football playoff rankings come out on Tuesday. Election day. We're all going to be focused. People are going to be worried about Election day. I'm focused on the college football playoff on Tuesday.
By the way.
Because BYU, I think, is going, and we talked to Mitch Harper about this yesterday, BYU is going to be ranked higher than BYU fans are ready for. I think there's going to be a lot of respect for what BYU's done in that committee room as opposed to the AP poll.
They look good when they're winning. That's
they have 2 top 25 wins.
Right.
And those 2 top 25 teams,
both
that's their
losses.
only loss. Kansas State and SMU are 7-1. SMU is in the ACC race.
Yeah.
They're legit contenders in the ACC.
Right.
Kansas State, obviously, is a Big 12 contender. Like, BYU's resume it's not just that they're 8-0.
Dang, though.
The resume's good.
Because here's the thing. You're probably not – this probably ain't the year that you're deep enough to, like, national championship, if that ever is going to happen. So you at least want the conference championship. I don't know what I want.
You want to win a championship.
Okay, fine. I'll take the whatever. I'll take the conference championship, whatever happens in the playoff, even if you get slotted at that 4. Although some people are saying you're undefeated conference champ, you might hop and get the 3, especially if Miami.
I think Miami's.
Who's
got
a
good.
Who's got a greater chance of running the table? Who's got a greater chance? But that doesn't matter in a perception. In a ranking, Miami will always be above BYU just on brand. But what does Miami's remainder look like?
I don't know, but they haven't beat a top 25 team yet.
It's the ACC. They ain't got nothing. Play Florida State.
Although I keep saying on brand they'll beat them, but let's see what the committee comes out with.
Right. No. I think the committee is going to see it differently.
Miami's got Duke at home, Georgia Tech on the road, Wake Forest at home, Syracuse. Ooh, that Syracuse game in Syracuse. That might be where Miami trips up.
No. They could trip up in the ACC championship game against
the
SMU.
The championship game might be where Miami has a test.
SMU plays Pitt this weekend. We'll get to that in our prediction segment, but that's a big game in the ACC. And Clemson is playing Louisville this week. Clemson could take their first L in conference play, so we'll see how that all plays out. But Sly, I know obviously you're not pulling for the Cougs right now.
What? Of course not. Heck?
But you knew what it was like to be 8-0.
Right.
Looking at 4 games left in November, 4 games away from doing something special. What did your group do to finish the job?
We played New Mexico. And guess how that happened? 13-10 in a freaking heartbreaker.
So was Oklahoma State BYU's New Mexico?
No.
Or do they need another New Mexico?
They're Utah. Their New Mexico is going to be Utah. Watch. It's going to be cut. And that dark magic's going to come out, and the Utah fans are going to go nuts. I'm calling it right now. No. Oh, man. No.
But they beat I'm okay with that because they beat New Mexico, and it woke everybody up for the home stretch.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, what happened after New Mexico?
What
happened after New Mexico?
TCU 13-10.
Oh,
it was a tough game.
That was a top 10 team.
They were a top 10
TCU was
team.
awesome.
Yeah.
And then who'd you play before BYU?
San Diego State.
You whoop them?
No, 60-plus points.
Yeah, so whoop San Diego State, whoop to BYU.
I think it was 63-28 if I remember.
So New Mexico woke you up to withstand the test of TCU, and then you handled business San Diego State, Utah.
And then Alabama.
And then again in the bowl.
Everybody's shooting for you right now.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to knock you off. If you're in the top 10 team, that's the goal, especially in a rivalry game like this. You talk about Pitt, West Virginia, like those type of games. If either one of those teams were in this position, they would want to knock the other team off more than anything. Right? And so, that's exactly what's going on right now. Utah's going to have to come into this game. I want to be the spoiler. I want to be the blemish on your record. You can still go to the Big 12 championship after this game, but you're going to know you lost to the Utes. And that would be my mindset heading into this game and all the energy you need to. Plus, you only have so many opportunities to play football, right? And so if these guys can make that happen this year – and say, I was on that team that beat the 8-0 BYU Cougars. That's a great resume builder, even if they hit the portal, whatever it is. But as we talk about games with names, make this a game with names.
There's one thing I think BYU has to figure out in the month of November. They have played this nobody believes in us card really well.
You can't do that anymore.
It's not going to happen in November, guys, because the computers predict them to win all 4 of their games. They're going to be favored in all 4 of their games.
Hey.
How does BYU handle psychologically
Utah didn't handle it this year.
Being the favorite?
Utah didn't handle it this year.
Utah teams have rarely handled it well.
What confidence do you have that the committee's going to rank them high? I think the committee might stick them somewhere around 9 or 10, just like the AP
I think they're going to be right where they're at.
Them.
That's still pretty darn good.
Yeah, it's great.
I don't think
you got room to grow in these last 4 weeks.
Not for having the best strength, the second best strength of record out of all the teams and being undefeated.
No,
and I think they
you're
could
talking
be higher.
about the brand names. I think they're going to be right where they're at.
which BYU can play off that. And let me tell you something about those ESPN computers that I saw this morning.
Okay.
The Jets.
They're rigged.
Yes. No, they are rigged for ratings because they said the Jets are favored in every remaining game this year after watching the just putrid Jets last night. Man, I should have taken my kids for a second round of trick-or-treating because came home to that Texans-Jets game and, I wished the World Series would have been.
I know.
Gosh, give me anything back.
It was brutal.
I almost switched over to NBA basketball. But the Jets win. And then this morning, because I don't know, Jets fans must be gluttons for punishment and watch a lot of ESPN. Because they showed the Jets are favorites. It's 10 through 7, so I think 7 games remaining. Anyway, they're favored in every game except Week 16 at Buffalo. The Jets, who were just 2-6, are favored in every game. And after putting on that performance last night, all of a sudden we're supposed to expect that they're going to win 6 out of the last 7.
Rigged, man. You got to play with the money.
That's what I'm saying.
New York.
So forget, miss me with ESPN FBI.
Okay. But when we come back, I'm going to make the case for BYU to be ranked as high as 6th in the first college football playoff rankings.
All right.
We'll do that next. Here on a Football Friday, JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's a Friday, and we're talking football non-stop. All football, all the time. This is another edition of Football Friday with JJ and Alex, presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Football Friday continues here from Farmington High School. Real quick, I promised before the break that I would make a case for BYU and their college football playoff resume.
Before you do, really quick, I got a question to ask.
Uh-huh.
Danny Coates, BYU alum, tight end. Just walked by, said what up. He's coaching he's head coach of Farmington Phoenix out here. Did y'all see him walk away? Did football do that to him, or is that just y'all see that man walk away? Anyway. Dan's great, man.
He's the best.
He got that.
And the job he's done here is phenomenal because, coaching high school football is not easy.
He's not that much. He's only like 2 years older than me. I'm like, dang.
Right.
Hopefully it doesn't. I need to keep oil on the joints a little bit longer.
Yep. Keep that oil going.
But I also did play in the pros.
And I think high school football is what's aging Dan Coates. Trust me, he'll laugh at that because this program's probably whatever hair he has left has made it drop out of his head.
He did great, though.
This program went through a long losing streak between last year and this year. We talked about it earlier in the season. They turned things around and won Region 1. So part of why we're here is the turnaround that they pulled off this season. It's because Dan Coates is an awesome football coach. Just 2 years ago, they pushed Corner Canyon to the brink in one of the best semifinal games I've watched in some time at 6A level that we called. It was just fantastic. So Dan Coates doing a great job tonight. Of course, Aaron Beam at American Fork has just done an unreal job. The only thing he hasn't done is won a state championship at American Fork. They've been knocking on the door here for years. So great game tonight. Look forward to that. 6 p.m. kickoff. American Fork in Farmington. We'll have it for you on the KSL Sports app, KSL Plus app, and KSLSports.com. All right, my case for BYU being higher than you think. Okay, so you think that they're going to get? Where do you think they're going to when it's unveiled? What number do you think they're going to be put on? What do you think, Riley? And as a BYU fan and an alumni,
I think they just don't get. We never get the respect. So all right. Loser. Let's look what happened this week, or who's in front of them. You got the Ohio State-Penn State game.
Yep.
I think they keep 2-loss Ohio State in front of BYU. I think.
Yeah.
Because it's to Oregon and Penn State, so they lost to the number 1 and number 3 team.
Yeah. They do it to Alabama all the time. Yeah.
I think you're right. Which again
they drop them behind. They drop them behind 1-loss Texas. They love Notre Dame so much, they'll probably drop. In fact,
that's my problem.
Ohio State. Yeah, I know. Lost to Northern Illinois.
And their schedule is crap.
But
they do have that quality win against Texas A&M, who's right behind BYU in the AP poll. Could Texas A&M lead BYU with 1 loss? I don't think so.
So, who drops out? They're going to need someone in front of them.
Who do you?
One loss Miami.
Who has the better
them.
resume, Miami or BYU?
Does 2-loss Tennessee even drop behind them?
Tennessee's got 100%.
They have 3 and 5 Kentucky and 1 and 7 Mississippi State. So if Tennessee loses.
Tennessee lost to Arkansas. I know they beat Alabama, but we're clearly seeing that Alabama is not Alabama.
So, in my opinion,
what is their quality win?
Yeah. The only hope that I have of someone – so BYU is currently sitting at 9 in the AP, and the 8 in front of them, the only 2 teams that from a brand or a resume that if they trip, and by the way, if they trip up, because I don't believe maybe the committee disrespects Tennessee a little bit, but they're not going to disrespect Notre Dame, Texas, Miami, Ohio State, Penn State, Georgia, and Oregon. They're just not going to do it. So maybe Tennessee is the only one that might not have the brand strength to survive against BYU. And then in front, all of them can weather a loss with maybe the exception of Miami. Maybe Miami goes to right behind them. But 2-loss Texas stays in front. 2-loss Ohio State stays in front. 1-loss Penn State stays in front. I don't think Georgia and Oregon are going to lose.
Let me read off this list real quick. This is a team that lost by 2 touchdowns to Georgia. They only won it by a field goal in Nashville against Vanderbilt. And the rest of their wins are Colorado State, Michigan, UTSA, UL Monroe, and Mississippi State and Oklahoma.
Is that Texas?
That's Texas. Does BYU have a better resume than Texas? I would argue.
But it doesn't matter. We've talked about that. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
But the brand should have nothing to do with
but
what
JJ,
the committee
Vince
decides.
Young.
You're completely
right. McCoy.
Archie Manning. Come on now.
It should not matter. It's simply resume, and based on
doesn't.
resume,
We just talked about the
I
Jets.
can put BYU as high as 6 here. I could legitimately say they have a better resume than Miami because Miami hasn't played a top 25 team. Both are undefeated. One has 2 wins over top 25 teams. One has 0. If it's not Miami, if it's Memphis, who are you picking? BYU.
Right.
Why are we giving Miami the benefit of the doubt? Because it's Miami? That's baloney. This is supposed to weed through that. It's supposed
Cam
to be
Ward is going to be
committee
Heisman.
of human beings.
Cam Ward's
saying,
going to be Heisman
this is
rankings.
the better resume.
You got to put him in there.
And Notre Dame has a bad loss. A bad loss.
Oh, a bad loss. I can only see
I said
if
a
those
loss.
teams lose. If
Wins
Notre Dame, Texas,
shouldn't
Tennessee
matter.
lose, I could see them
8-0
jumping out.
should matter more than 7-1.
Of course it does, but it doesn't. Even
Unless
when we
the
were
1
8-0.
or the 2 is to a team that's in the top 5, right? That's my case for BYU.
Yeah.
I think
they
BYU
stay.
fans will be surprised at the respect that they get on Tuesday. But I think they're a lot like you, Riley. They just think they're going to get crapped on.
What if they get leaped on by Texas A&M?
Highest I think is 8.
That's possible.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
But they have every right to be upset about that because 8-0 should mean more than 7-1.
So the whole reason why we said that, and I know we got to get to break, but the whole reason why we said this is because you were saying, what if everybody starts hopping on the BYU train? And I'm telling you, the football program does not have enough respect, and the ESPN machine and everything around the playoff, they will not get it. They will be able to continue to say that, look, here we are sitting at 9-0. We just went into our rival's house, took care of business, and they still got us back here sitting at 10. And that will help continue to fuel the fire and decrease the chances that they get snake bit against one of these struggling programs like Kansas or Houston.
If that's the case, it'll be extremely disappointing because this 12-team playoff was supposed to be about resume and what you really did. It wasn't about the 4 teams. It wasn't about what conference you're in. It wasn't about your brand. It was about who has the best resume, just like the NCAA tournament is supposed to be in basketball. And if it turns out to not be that case,
I need you to give me one of these
it's
pep
going to be
talks
disappointing.
around like politics and the state of the. You got the rose-colored glasses, JJ. I like it.
Apparently.
I need some of that in my life.
All right. Well, let's hope that the committee's kind to BYU on Tuesday. All right, we got to get to a break. It's Football Friday. JJ and Alex, we got more next. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's a Friday, and we're talking football non-stop. All football, all the time. This is another edition of Football Friday with JJ and Alex, presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Welcome back. We're at Farmington High School for a Football Friday. You can hear the drums in the background. The band is here. High school football tonight, the playoffs in full swing. We've got a 5 versus 12 matchup between the Farmington Phoenix and the American Fork Cavemen tonight on the KSL Sports app, KSL Plus app, KSLSports.com. You can watch that game starting at 6 o'clock. I'll be on the call with Sly, so you can check us out there. Bye week for the teams here in the state, at least at the Division I, the FBS level. So Utes, Cougars, Aggies all off this week. But we're getting ready for the rivalry game. We're talking about a lot of different things this Football Friday. It's been fun. We're going to continue that conversation next. And it's brought to you by G2G Bars with all natural ingredients. No preservatives and plenty of protein. G2G Bars are perfect for anyone who needs a tasty and nutritious boost. Football Friday continues right now. It's a cut.
It's time for the biggest story of the day. This is What Made the Cut with JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Show's also brought to you by our friends at Trajan Wealth, your local financial fiduciary. 801-899-7600 or visit their website at TrajanWealth.com. We've talked a lot of stuff today, guys. We talked about the last games for BYU and Utah. We talked about the rivalry. What is it about this rivalry week that you guys enjoyed as players? Like, what was it about the build-up? What was it about that whole preparation you guys went through as players? What was that like?
For me,
and was it different than the other games?
Yeah, it's definitely different than the other games. For me, I like history. I love where this came from. I love where it started. I love the trend in the 70s and mid-80s where the BYU was just so dominant. And then, these subtle changes in the early 90s when McBride took over to Utah coming back and going back and forth to Urban taking over. And then, Utah striving with their undefeated seasons and then still having struggles against BYU, and then the name games all coming out. Because, you think about it, like that 04 game, right? Utah went undefeated that year. Mm-hmm. Utah really didn't start pulling away till late third quarter, fourth quarter, where they made some plays. And then, 05, BJ's out, Ratliff comes in. Nobody knows anything about Ratliff. He makes it happen. Latondras wins it in overtime. Absolutely stellar game. 06, we already talked about that. For me, the history of the game is what football is all about. You love football. You love this rivalry right here. This is one of the top rivalries in all of sports, from baseball. I'm even going to professional levels with, and that's me. I guess I'm a bias there, but I'm taking this Red Sox, Yankees, talking about Steelers, Ravens. I'm going at all levels here with one of the top rivalries in all of sports is this Utah-BYU rivalry.
Maybe this was because I was a quarterback. But, I loved practicing hard. And you got guys that practice hard, but,
You're a quarterback. You don't practice hard.
That's what I'm saying. No, I loved it when – that's the thing.
What are you talking about?
I loved it when my dudes practiced. Rivalry week, you didn't have to.
You can't
it was
hit
hard.
the quarterback.
I know, but you understand. Here's what I'm saying. Like what I loved about rivalry week, I hated when we go out and we do crossover one-on-ones, and it would be like going through the motions. Or we do crossover 7-on-7. And I'm looking over there, and I know Danny Sorensen, should have made it harder on my wide receiver, but he's all right, we'll let him catch it. And
right.
I'm not gonna risk breaking a finger or risk breaking a hand trying to break up a pass and cross over 7-on-7 against Colorado State week. That always frustrated me. I was like, we only got so many chances to practice and play. Let's go. Another thing was scout, but whether it was crossover work or even the scout team would come out jazzed. I just love the prep. Yeah. You asked about those weeks. I love the prep for those weeks because it was the level of intensity of football, and I know it's not sustainable. It's not logical to expect that to be sustainable all through a fall camp and through a 12-game schedule and a bowl game. But that was my wish. That was what I hoped. Those were the practices I enjoyed most. Now, that's why I say it's easy for me to say as a quarterback.
The level of focus during a rivalry.
It was easy for me to say as a quarterback because it didn't require anything more from me physically, right? I'm not out there banging bodies. I'm not out there, doing sprints and things like that. But I loved rivalry week for that aspect because you didn't have to question. You didn't have to pull it out. I don't know if you ever – Mondays were normally walkthrough. You're kind of working out the kinks or whatever. But you come out Tuesday, and Tuesday, I'd say half the weeks. Yeah, Bloody Tuesdays, guys are just the tempo that they walk out to practice with. They know it as a leader on the team. You're trying to get guys excited. You're trying
false enthusiasm, baby.
Yeah, you're trying to jaw it out of them. It was never false for me, but it was for a lot of dudes on the team, and I understand why. You never got that with Rivalry Week. You never even thought you were going to get that in Rivalry Week, and that's what I loved most.
Yeah, that level of intensity, that level of focus throughout the week, game planning, being ready for these guys, everybody being on point, not want to be the one to mess this up. That level of focus that just increases during this week is just awesome.
And I think, in Sly, you mentioned something interesting there. You talked, because it's your personal experience. You know the history of this rivalry. There's a story to tell here. There's a story to tell. And I think if more people around the country knew that story, they would understand what you're saying about how intense this rivalry is and how it matches up with any in the country. I think it's not going to be this year because of the situation with Utah and they haven't played 3 out of the last 4 years. But in the future, this rivalry has a chance to become national because it's on a Power 4 stage. And it's never been on this stage before, ever. And I think this is going to be a big opportunity for both of these programs to help build their program through this. Because look at Ohio State, Michigan. Like, think of the best rivalries, Alabama, Auburn, whatever it might be. Throw out your favorite rivalries in college football. They're on a big stage. And what does it do for those programs? How has it lifted up those programs? Where would Auburn be without Alabama? Where would Ohio State, Michigan be without each other, right? And those things matter. And I think this, now that we're in this Power 4 situation with these teams, I think it can have a huge impact on the future of both the rivalry and its perception nationally and these programs individually, because the stakes are going to be pretty high. Right now, you have BYU in a position to go to the college football playoff. They've never had a realistic chance of doing this.
Right.
I mean, you go all the way back to 84. College football built a whole system to keep teams like BYU out.
Right.
They didn't want that to happen ever again. Well, now BYU's back in. They have every opportunity to go as far as they want. There's nothing that could hold them back other than some of the biases we talked about in the last segment with the Big Ten, the SEC, all that perception stuff. But ultimately, they have a path to prove it on the field each and every year. All you have to do is take care of business, right? If you win the Big 12, you're in the playoff.
You win
if
what's
you're
on
in the
your
playoff,
schedule.
you can win a national championship.
For sure.
And so both of these programs are going to have that opportunity each and every year. And having a platform like this for both BYU and Utah to play on a big stage, I know it's at 8:15 East Mountain Time on ESPN this year. But in the future, if both teams are really, really good, this game's going to be an afternoon game on Fox, and the whole country is going to be watching it. So there's opportunities here for this to lift both of these programs up in the future. And it's not just going to be a thing that's in the state of Utah. It's going to become every year people around the country look forward to watching that, just like they look forward to Auburn and Alabama and Ohio State and Michigan, Florida State, whatever rivalries you can think of.
But the product's got to be there because you keep
100%.
mentioning Iron Bowl. When was the last time y'all cared about the Iron Bowl?
I've never cared.
When Cam Newton played?
Not even.
I mean, they had that craze, the kick six.
Yeah, that was awesome.
When was that? That was 2010.
But that's in retrospect.
Yeah,
that's in retrospect. That's not leading up into the game.
But what I'm saying is,
I'm more excited to see the result than actually watch the Alabama.
What makes a rivalry great is there has to be something on the line, and the competition has to be. That's why everyone tunes in to Michigan, Ohio State. Is because
they're always
there's
top
something
10.
on the something on the line, and the quality of play is always there. It's not
20
always
million
a game.
people watched that game last year.
It's not always, and it didn't come down to the wire. It wasn't a Hail Mary in overtime, but the quality of play, you could tune in knowing, you tuned in because you knew there was something on the line.
And the stakes are high.
And second, you were confident that the quality of play was going to be there. That's what this rivalry has to produce, and they got to begin starting next Saturday night.
Yeah, if
it's going to become a Fox 1 o'clock kick.
Exactly. If it's going to become a game that's on the level that Sly talked about, where it goes up a notch.
I said Fox. Let's put it on ABC. Gus is my man, but he overdoes it sometimes. Sorry, that was just.
And you can't stand Joel Klatt, so.
Yeah, I'm not a Fox guy. Give me Herbie.
Let's give it to ABC.
Just give me Herb Street.
Fowler and Herbie.
Yeah.
I like it, though. I like it. I think this is a new beginning for the rivalry. I really do. Like, you look back, guys, and there's chapters of the rivalry, right? So when I was growing up, I'm from Wyoming. I honestly didn't know about the BYU Utah rivalry because I grew up – I was born in 1977. I grew up in the 80s. I honest to goodness thought BYU's rival was Wyoming. Because it was in the 80s.
Yeah, in the WAC.
In 87 and 88, Wyoming won the WAC championships. They beat BYU. They knocked them off their perch after they had won the national championship. I thought that was the rivalry. You talk to a lot of people – especially people that are from the islands, they thought BYU Hawaii was the rivalry.
Yeah.
It was never BYU Utah. What changed it? Ron McBride, 1993. Jurgensen's field goal, 56 yards for the win. And from there, 34-31. And ever since then, that rivalry has been rekindled. You go back to the 50, before then, Utah used to dominate BYU back in the day. There was a few moments.
Everyone did. The Aggies did. Utah
60s.
State did.
Really, BYU football started in 1972.
Yeah.
Nobody talks about BYU football before 1972.
There's no reason to.
They never went to a bowl game before 1974. Was it 73 or 74? 74, I think they went 74. To the Fiesta Bowl, played Oklahoma State, I think.
Yep, that was GIF.
Yep. So Gary Scheide was the first. That 74
that was Scheide? That wasn't. Oh, yeah, GIF was later. He was 76,
2 years
77.
later. Yep. But my point being is, like, there's chapters in this rivalry And a new chapter started in 2011 when the conference, they left the Mountain West. And there was a chapter there. It was a weird chapter, but it was a chapter. Now we're starting a new one. And I think this has a chance to be the chapter where it's not about BYU versus Utah. It's about playing this rivalry on a national stage.
Right.
And it's not going to happen overnight. And both programs have to do their end. Both programs have to be great. And I think they can be. And then take that platform and use that platform to elevate this rivalry to another level.
I just hate that this should have been that year.
I know.
This should have been that year.
Based on what we thought Utah was going to be and what BYU has become, can you imagine?
Yeah.
Even in 8-0 versus 7-1.
Right.
If Utah had simply scored 24 points at least in every game, we'd
7-1.
have an 8-0 versus a 7-1. Both teams still in the Big 12 race, which is what we thought possibly could have happened before the season.
No, we didn't. Not before the season.
Well, Jake Retzloff believed it, so I believe
now.
it.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? Like, what could have been, it's not going to be. But it's a start. It's a new beginning. And for Utah, this is a big deal. For BYU, I think this is a big deal, too, because
look,
Riley,
BYU
you know how it's
BYU is 1-9 in their last 10.
It's made you sick.
Yes,
it's made BYU fans sick to watch Utah become Pac-12 champions.
You're talking so big picture from a BYU perspective. It's just like we need to even it out,
right?
Like that. Oh, and a 9-game losing streak,
and that was a chapter in the rivalry.
I'll be
Utah's
honest,
dominance.
I'll be honest.
I got the 80s there for BYU.
I got there in 2009, which was the close of the previous games up to 2009. Was 5-5, and BYU. To them, talking to the alumni that were coming back, that was an embarrassment because those dudes were coming. Their previous 10 was like it was 8-2 and 9-1 the other way.
Between 1993 and 2009, there were only 3 games that were decided by more than a touchdown.
Yeah,
the whole time it was always close.
So, but for BYU, like forget if I, as a BYU fan, as an alum, all that's great, icing on the cake. We gotta even the score. Like we gotta win 3 or 4 in a row.
You want to make
to
up
like
ground.
Somehow even back out that 9-0.
That needs to be BYU's mentality.
And yes,
they need to have that. Yeah.
We've gotten 1 out of the last 10. We need to get 2 out of the last 9. You know what I mean? We got to start chipping away at that.
And I think BYU fan has all this pent up frustration that they're now being able to let out. It's like okay. You made fun of us for a decade. But you took your shots at us for a decade.
One game doesn't do it. This game we got to stack them.
But Riley, they have this pent-up frustration, and this is a chance. I think BYU fans feel that the tide is turning. There's a dent in the Utah armor right now. There's Utah blood in the water, and they feel like this could be the turn of the rivalry. This could be a turn of BYU becoming the better program.
Turn back to 5-5, or turn back to like the 90s and the 80s.
I think they feel like this is a turn for BYU to become the better program.
Interesting. You got to win this one.
Utah.
You got to win this one.
That should piss off Utah players, coaches, fans.
I got nothing to say on this topic.
Sly, react to what I'm just saying right now. The idea that BYU sees this as an opportunity to flip this.
I mean, that's what the mentality BYU needs to have. Utah's got to understand that is the mentality that BYU has.
Yeah.
You got to not let that happen. It's as simple as that. You got to understand they're going to try to cut. This is me. Nobody's going to come in my house and try to do no haka. Ain't going to try to do no nothing like that. They ain't going to try to go undefeated. I'm not going to be added to their statistics. I'm going to be that one anomaly on their whole resume for the year. That is my mentality, and that's how I'm going into this game. That's how I'm going into every single play. If I'm Junior Tafuna, I'm in Retzloff's face every single play saying that same thing.
Max Crosby stuff, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Come here, little boy.
Yeah, I'm here.
Little boy.
I'm here.
I love Crosby.
No, he's awesome.
The rivalry needs that. The rivalry needs some energy and some spice.
For sure.
And I think that's it's an opportunity to start a new chapter with this, and let's hope it's a chapter that elevates it to another level. It's not just about the hatred or whatever all that stuff is. This is about both programs elevating this rivalry to a national level.
Which hatred's a part of it, JJ.
That's always there. But let's take this national. Let's make this bigger than it's ever been before. Not from you suck, not that crap.
The
but
framework
both teams,
is there.
Both teams
We're
being
both
substance.
good, but I'm
both
better.
Both teams being powerful.
Yeah, the substance.
We're legit. We're top 25. And when that game happens every year, it's for a conference champion.
For sure.
At the highest level.
That's what I want it to
with
be.
With playoffs on the line.
That's what I want it to be.
It's not going to be this year, but it could be soon. And that's what I hope for.
Will the Big 12 put it on the week after Thanksgiving? Will they put it on game
week
12?
That's what I was saying before the season. I was like, you know what, renewing this, I having it at the beginning of November, I don't hate it. But going forward after this, it has to be the last game. Because the Mountain West Days, it literally always defined the conference.
It was awesome.
Who's going to win?
This Farmageddon is at the last game of the year, and the winner of that game probably gets in the Big 12.
Always.
Think about how much is going to be at stake in that last week. I do agree. Now that we're doing this November 9th thing, cool, fine, first year, whatever. But if this game is really going to take on the life that I think it's going to take on,
let's be honest.
Play it last week.
Look, it's part of it's BYU's fault. I mean, here we are sitting now, but why isn't it on Thanksgiving? Because the previous 10 are 1-9, and Utah was supposed to come in and walk the conference, and everybody was hoping BYU was like, hey, let's get to 6 wins and go to a bowl.
Right.
Like that's why this game's on November 9th. But if
still,
it can live up to the hype,
still good games. Even though you lost, they were still good games, except for the 54, whatever it was. But, like, all those, you just talked about it.
Yeah.
We had the blocked field goals. You had the missed field goals. You know, the Jason Shelley had to come back at the end of the game. Like, they've been all really good games.
Yeah.
So, even though Utah won, you can't just look at the W column. How did those games go? Were they emotional?
It's going to be late. Hopefully it can do numbers for the slot. And if it does numbers for the slot, then get this game back on that last week of the season and get it on the afternoon kick.
It needs to be entertaining. It goes back to our would you rather. It needs to be a memorable game.
Yep.
I don't know what's going to be. We'll talk about that more next week, but I look forward to a new chapter in the Utah BYU rivalry. All right, we got to take a break here on Football Friday. Before I go, just want to tell you, Trajan Wealth. Give them a call, your local financial fiduciary, 801-899-7600, or visit their website at TrajanWealth.com. If you need a 401k for your small business, maybe you need some retirement planning, whatever your investment and financial needs are, they've got you taken care of. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're hoping to connect with Bear, Andre Tourney. No Coach Bear. We're not going to connect with Coach Bear. We got the final word. No Coach Bear. We'll catch up with him next week. They're headed to Vegas. Utah Hockey Club got a big win last night. They'll try to do the same thing against the Vegas Golden Knights on Saturday. We'll be right back for Football Friday. JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's a Friday, and we're talking football non-stop. All football, all the time. This is another edition of Football Friday with JJ and Alex, presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Welcome back. Football Friday rolls on here from Farmington High School. Side of our Game Night Live game of the week between the Farmington Phoenix and the American Fort Cavemen. Second round of the 6A state playoffs. A 5 versus 12 matchup. We'll bring it to you live on the KSL Sports app, KSL Plus app, or KSLSports.com. Sly will be on the call with me when we get that going. We got a segment here to chat more about college football. And I want to bring this up. And Riley, I want to get your thoughts. People like me that work in the media, the evil sports media, what did we miss about BYU in the offseason? Why did we get it wrong?
Honestly, I don't blame the media too bad because they had so many pieces returning. Like we're not hearing names for the first time. They didn't have some transfer. They didn't have some, a super big recruiting class that was showing a lot of signs last week. It reminds me back to my days when I was on the call and BYU was independent and doing their own media day. And Jeff Grimes comes in. I said, Coach, we got 4. This was leading into that. This was going into that 2020 season. I said, you got 4 out of your 5. These guys have started, I think at the time it was like 36 games together on the offensive line. I go, that's got to make you encouraged. He goes, well, there's one thing about bringing guys back. If they do their things right and they develop and they take a step forward, then, yeah, it's a great thing because you get that experience. But then on the flip side of it, if they come back and they're the same old players, then you got big problems on your hands. I think people more assume to be that. Plus, what I think people didn't give enough credence, and I'm guilty of this of myself. You looked at the 2 previous to make the jump from G5 to P5.
Yeah.
It was TCU and Utah. At least a 3 to 4 year on ramp. Both of them eventually climbed to the heights of their, TCU with the Big 12 championships and Utah with the Pac-12 championships. Both of them got there, but I think we underestimated the power of NIL and transfer in shortening that on-ramp to relevancy and competing for a conference with BYU. And then the other thing, I'm just going to say it because these dudes, like, you look at the pro production, you look at these other things, like the Blue Bloods recruit at a different level. With Oklahoma and Texas, if Oklahoma and Texas are still in the league, is BYU in this position? I don't know, maybe. But
maybe they don't play Oklahoma and Texas.
But it does change the dynamic, whereas TCU had to bump up against the Oklahomas and the Texases of the world. You know, Utah had to bump up against the USCs, or at the time Stanford was kind of running it. The Oregon was still there, and some of those things. But those would be probably my three main points.
I look at it, and here's some things that stood out to me. Because I'm trying to learn as somebody who covers these teams how to do a better job of predicting what could happen. And I just said the word predicting.
Yeah, like what are you talking about?
But because it matters. I think it does matter how we in the media project and predict what happens, because if BYU was picked top 25 before the season started, where are they at in the rankings? Probably higher, right?
I don't agree, JJ.
You don't?
No. Look, we're giving opinions, right? This is what we believe. This is what I believe Utah should do. I don't know what Utah should do. We don't know. We are not fortune tellers here.
Right.
We're only giving opinions based off of what we've been given, right?
Yeah.
What we've seen from BYU, what we've seen from Jake Retzlaff, what we've seen from this defense the last couple of years, right, is their inept ability to focus on the technique.
Right.
Who knows? In here, the only thing that you should give yourself grace on as far as projecting where BYU should be is development through the year.
Yeah.
Right? Like giving Jake Retzlaff an entire offseason and a lot of reps in spring and training camp with that first position to learn this offense and get comfortable and being confident in it. That's the only thing that we should say we should have did a better job of guesstimating on, but we've only been given opinions on what we've been able to see from them. And over the years, BYU hasn't given us anything that gives us this 8-0 start.
Right.
So spring games are a thing of the past.
Yeah.
Right? That used to be a chance for the media to get their eyes on guys.
We used to be able to watch more of practices.
I was going to say, when was the last time you were on the beat?
Like, as far as it's been about 10 years since I was going to practices consistently where I had to report every day on the
What did you get, 20 minutes at the end?
Back in the day, you could get more than that.
Okay.
You can see a lot more than that.
Well, around my time, I think it was.
It started to shrink about
around
the
my
time
time.
you were
I was going to say, I think they let him in for maybe the last.
Yes.
I remember like 3 or 4 periods.
Right. And
now,
usually sometimes,
Now, you get maybe the last 2 periods if you're lucky.
Right. And it's usually third or fourth string guys that are running reps.
Yeah, so if people care, then, I don't think the coaches care because they get to do what Coach Sitake's doing right now, and that's pit everybody against us. They get to control the narrative.
Right.
The more access they get media, you can call it, like, you hamstring the media and you can be like, oh, they're creating narratives. They don't know. They don't da-da-da-da. Because you don't let them in the door to know. There's no way for them to know in a preseason evaluation process because you don't see the team.
You have the opposite happening with Utah where, same thing, we're not allowed to watch practices. We don't know what's going on. We're not watching Cam get reps now. We had no idea where Cam was physically. We assumed he was ready.
Absolutely no idea.
We couldn't watch.
So we don't know if Cam was actually crappy before this.
So everybody's building up this hype about Utah based on judgments of what Cam Rising was
and what they're
in
saying
2021 and 2022 before the knee injury.
What
Brant Keithy was before the knee injury.
Joel Klatt is going off of what he's seen from
Depth taxes
Utah.
in Utah football
right?
is the assumption of what we saw from 2018 through 2022.
You got Brant Keithy coming back, dominant player, high NFL draft rating. Cam Rising, 2-time conference winning before his injuries. You got Dorian Singer, Pac-12 Player of the Year at one point, coming from USC. You got Caleb Lohner coming in, 6'9" receiver, absolute stud at receiver.
We hear about the hype of Connor O'Toole.
O'Toole, off of what he's been
was back.
What he's able to.
Karene Reed was back.
Lander Barton. You got all
Lander
these guys
Barton's an
coming
NFL
back.
Prospect.
Right? That's what you're going off of. That's because that's what we've been able to see. We haven't been able to see all those guys together to see if that works. But based off of the information that we've got from those things, that's what this team should be. And so what we've gotten from BYU is the same thing. Retzloff was so inconsistent last year. Turnover. These defenses can't get technique. You're letting guys go wide open. You're missing blatant things. You're getting ran all over. That's what we've been seeing. That's where our opinion comes from. So that's why I don't agree.
Yeah, last year the offensive line for BYU, not great. They could not run the football. This year, offensive line, TJ Woods comes in.
How would you know that?
New scheme.
It was all the same guys. All you changed was the position coach. How many times
But
does
how
changing a
important
position
is
coach
that
make
to
it
a
night
team?
and day? Yeah.
How important is that
Well,
to a team? You can't undervalue that.
Yeah, but sometimes it's hit and miss, and nobody really knew TJ Woods. Like, TJ Woods didn't come in with this big resume and like, oh, for sure, he's a lock to turn it around. So.
Right. And Retzloff, were we being unfair to him in the offseason, Riley, as someone who played the position at BYU? Based on what we saw with the 4 games last year, did we evaluate that incorrectly?
No.
Right.
The only thing you saw the playmaking ability, but it was like the up and the down. And through play calling and game planning from Roderick, and then Retzlaff's own ability to develop as a player, they've limited all that downside. The upside was still there. We always talk about, like I talked coming into this season, how frustrating it was to be up on Oklahoma State and lose that game, to throw that pick 6 on the on the 1 yard line against Oklahoma. But let's think about what happened before those plays. You were up on Oklahoma State in their house in the last game of the season. You had you were going in to knock out Oklahoma State, and then it went. So Jake Retzlaff, he got all the blame for when those things went south. But one of the things we did was undervalue the credit that he deserved for putting them in those positions in the first place.
Fair enough. I'm just trying to look back, and it's ultimately seasons take on lives of their own. And in 2008, I don't think anybody outside of your locker room thought you guys would go beat Alabama in a Sugar Bowl.
I mean, I did, yeah.
See? And I love that because that's what BYU players are telling us now. Jake Retzloff is telling Jim Rome that we knew we were going to be this special.
Lies.
We've had Connor Pay on our show with Alex, and Connor's telling us we knew in the locker room that we had a chance to be this good.
That's all that matters.
And you're right.
That's all that matters
is all
is
that
in that locker room.
Is you have a team that believes, you have a culture that's healthy, and you go out there and you make it happen. But again, you still need the ball to bounce your way. In 2008, you needed the ball to bounce your way.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Many times.
And the great teams you played on, things had to line up a certain way for you to win certain games, right? So that's football. I just thought it was interesting to look back and say, what did we miss here? What did we miss on BYU? What did we miss on Utah? Because our predictions before the season, every year they're going to be off. You're not going to know everything. But they were way off this year, and it's just an interesting study on why did BYU exceed our expectations so much?
I had them at 8. I had BYU at 8, so mine's still in play.
8th in Big 12?
No. 8 wins.
8 wins?
I sure as hell hope it doesn't come to fruition. But I had them
that would
at
be
8.
incredibly disappointing.
That would be the ultimate tank right there. That would be insane.
That would be rough.
That would be brutal.
But Riley's been great at his projections so far this year.
And Utah can still get to 8-4, just like they were last year.
We can.
Who knows what November brings? Can't wait to find out. But what a wild and crazy and unpredictable season. And, guys, I think that next week could be wild and crazy and unpredictable too. Why? Because it's rivalry week, and that game takes on a life of its own. All right, we're going to take a break here from Farmington High School. Football Friday. We'll be back with more next. JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's a Friday, and we're talking football non-stop. All football, all the time. This is another edition of Football Friday with JJ and Alex, presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Football Friday, it's prediction time. But before that, we want to tell you to go check out Doug Smith Dealerships for an incredible selection on Kia, Subaru, Chevy, Jeep, Dodge, Ram. Visit Doug Smith Dealerships in Linden and Spanish Fork. Great service starts with know-how, and nobody knows how like Doug. All right, guys, we don't have any local games to predict, but we're going to get into some games this week that are of national importance, which, of course, impacts BYU in the college football playoff race. So let's start with this one. Ohio State at Penn State in the Big Ten.
Ooh,
this is number 3 versus number 4.
Happy Valley, 10 a.m.
It's going to be a black and blue game, man. This is going to be a battle royale. Who wins it by how much?
You know what? Penn State has been beat down in this back and forth relationship so much. I'll give them the edge in this game. I think they want it. They're number 3 in the country. They have it. They're at home. So much. Ohio State just had their number for so many years. I don't even know when the last time Penn State's won this game. But this time I think Penn State does it, 24-21.
I do too, and the biggest reason, not necessarily Penn State, Ohio State, but the last time they were in a marquee game like this was when Michigan. They had Michigan last year, and they got embarrassed. Michigan handed the ball off the entire second half. Yeah. But Drew Aller did not play good in that game, but he's back. He's playing much better this year. I think he's taking a step forward. I think Penn State gets him.
I do too. I think Penn State's finally going to get this one. This will give Ohio State 2 losses in conference play, which would knock them out of the Big Ten and possibly CFP. National championship contention in the CFP. We'll see about that, though. I got Penn State winning 24-21 as well. Another big one, which I didn't think was going to be big when the season started, but Pitt and SMU.
How about that?
I did not think that this was going to be a big game, but Pittsburgh, 7-0, number 18 in the country, going to Dallas to play 20th-ranked SMU, who's 7-1. This has big implications for BYU because BYU is the biggest cheerleader of SMU right now because the more SMU wins, the more BYU's resume becomes stronger.
Those rankings from ESPN make them look better.
Yep. Who do you guys got in this one?
I got SMU. You're at home. I think that they're trending. They want to leave their mark right now. Pittsburgh's been playing great, but I got SMU for sure. The way they've been putting up points, even if it becomes a tight game, I just think that they're playing with a confidence right now that could, keep them going.
I'll be honest. This is just a pick on emotion. I want SMU, so I'm going to pick SMU. Normally, I try and have some objective, like from having watched, but I have not watched a single down of Pitt football this year, so it's hard for me to predict on football basis.
Pitt is much improved. Them getting 7-0 is rare.
Like,
for
what's
them.
their deal? Do they air it out? Do they run it? Is it play D?
They're winning close games. And the teams they're beating are not that impressive.
Last year's Vikings.
Which is why I think that SMU at home is going to take care of business. I think SMU wins 35-28. Okay, one more national game, and it is actually a Big 12 game. Texas Tech, Iowa State. Interesting, in Ames, Texas Tech going to Iowa State. I think obviously BYU would love to see Tech get this one, but what do you guys think? Does Iowa State take their first L this weekend?
I think so.
Ooh.
Yep. And, again, this is another one. I hadn't watched a down of Pitt. I think I've watched maybe a quarter of Tech, so I'm not as familiar with them. I have watched a lot of Iowa State, but that's more like the heart wants what the heart wants, and I want Iowa State to take an L to buy BYU a little bit of leeway, breathing room. Plus, I don't know why I got such an issue with Joel Klatt and his refusal to give BYU any kind of kudos.
He's been used all over Utah this offseason.
I know, but he hates BYU. I want to find a way to get Colorado and BYU in there so that BYU can beat down on his alma mater. So that's another reason why I want Iowa State.
I got Iowa State.
I do not have Texas Tech.
Yeah.
A few weeks ago when they were undefeated or they were winning, they lost to Washington State early season. But, when they were winning, we were just like, have they played anybody? They played Baylor and TCU these last couple weeks and really showed their colors. So, yeah, do not have any faith in Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Seen a couple plays. I don't believe in them, but Iowa State's definitely handling it. So, I got Iowa State in this one.
I got Iowa State winning by a touchdown. So,
I got
going to 8 now.
Double digits.
All right, we got to get we've run out of time in this segment. We got to get to a break. More Football Friday after this. JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's a Friday, and we're talking football non-stop. All football, all the time. This is another edition of Football Friday with JJ and Alex, presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, time to wrap up another Football Friday. We're week 10 of the college football season, week 12 of the high school football season, and that's our focus now, is the high school football playoffs going on around the state of Utah tonight. We've got games all over the place. You can go right now to KSLSports.com and watch a lot of games live. Go check out American Fork versus Farmington right now. Me and Sly are doing that game right now. So go check that out. Guys, before we say goodnight, before we get too far deep in the playoffs, Riley, you suggested this. It'd be fun to predict our state champions in 6A. We'll do 6A through 4A. If you want to do 3A through 1A, we can, but I think everyone's more familiar with the bigger schools.
All I'll say is, I just got to put a plug in because they're doing something extraordinary. Yeah. Morgan finished the regular season 5-10 points, so 51 points a game, and gave up 41 the entire season. So through the regular season, 51-4 was their average margin of victory. pretty safe prediction there of Morgan in 3A.
Morgan Trojans top 10 team, although Richfield's the defending champ. They've had a great season. That'll be interesting, but Morgan has been.
Are they set to meet in the semis?
Yes.
Yes.
They're 1 versus 2.
Semis not in the.
Well, no, sorry. They would be 1 and 2. They would be in the championship game.
Awesome.
If the brackets go the way they think they can go.
Let's hope it goes
So that
way.
would be fun to see the defending champ take on Morgan, who is. They're like top 10 in the state good.
Yep.
They're that good. And I think that North Summit wins 1A. 2A San Juan, that program's got it rolling. They're back this year, so they should win 2A. So let's focus on 6A, 5A, and 4A before we go. Real quick, guys. Sly, I'll give you who's your 6A, 5A, 4A state champs this year?
Oh, my gosh. You're going to have the Blue Bloods, but I think there's going to be some.
You can start with 4A if you want and work your way through.
No, I'm going to start with 6A. 6A for me right now, I mean, you got Corner Canyon. They've had a rough and rocky season, and they're still the number 1 team in the state.
Their sense.
Right.
With injuries, not necessarily wins and losses.
But they're doing absolutely awesome for me. I got Roy Royals coming up and surprising people.
You got them in finals?
I got them in the finals against a Corner Canyon team. Now I got
No, Roy's at 5, though.
Roy would be 5A.
Oh, are they 5A?
Yes.
I thought they were 6A. All right, yeah. So I got Roy in the finals for 5A winning it. And then Corner Canyon for 6A.
Got it.
We talked about Morgan's a little bit of a foregone conclusion in 3A. Is Ridgeline kind of the foregone in 4A?
I think so.
It's normally North versus South. The St. George
Spanish
team hasn't.
Fork can put up a lot of points. Crimson Cliff's the defending champ, but they had to replace a lot of players.
St. George is not as strong as it was.
Ridgeline beat Riverton, a 6A team. Ridgeline's really good.
As much as it pains me because they're like the new version of Mountain Crest, who were my sworn rivals growing up, but I think it's Ridgeline in 4A.
Okay.
5A for me, I like Roy. Roy was going to be my second pick because I need more trophies up north. Like, come on, Davis County, you can do it.
Timpview has plenty. They need to share.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and it's got to be owned by Davis County, but instead of Roy, hometown, I live in Bountiful.
Okay.
I went and watched Freck and Coach Freckleton and all that team and all those
year.
dudes. Yeah, I want I want Bountiful to break through. They lost to Timpview last year in the state championship game. Maybe it ends up with they're on opposite sides of the bracket. Maybe we get a rematch. I'm talking Bountiful, kind of like making amends for last year. And then 6A. Stick to our BYU guys, like our tough. You mentioned Corner Canyon, but they got Kasuga's out, Lyle's out. Like they're not the same team that started the season that beat IMG Academy.
Right.
And then you look from there and you go, man, Lehigh's come on really strong. Skyridge is all tough. To me, kind of unsung.
Skyridge is tough.
Yeah, me though unsung. And I talk about our BYU brethren, Coach Denny, coaching the defense at Lone Peak. Brockbank has been there before. He's beaten Corner Canyon for state championships. I got Lone Peak coming up with my 6A
There you
title.
go. Boom. I'm off the hook because we got to go to break. We're out.
You don't have to get people mad at you.
Thank you. Christian back in the booth. Thanks. That's a Football Friday. It's a wrap. We'll see you next week. JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.